Welcome to Truth Uncompromised. I am your host, Rhonda. Join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Truth is peace. Truth is justice and freedom to love, live, and be. Music provided by sourcevibrations.com. I am love. I am peace. I am free. I have abundance. I have everything within me. For I was, for I am, for I will always be. We are love. We are peace. We are free. We have abundance. We have everything within us. For we are, for we will always be. For Mother Earth is love. For Mother Earth has peace. For Mother Earth is free. For Mother Earth has abundance. For Mother Earth has everything within her. For she was, for she is, for she will always be. And so it is spoken. So it has been written, and it is done.
You have entered into a dimension of truth, where time does not exist and illusions are shattered. The journey of truth is intense. The journey of truth will set you free. Consider this a warning as you enter the dimension of truth uncompromised. All right, family. Welcome to the Truth Uncompromised show. I am your host, Rhonda, and tonight is Thursday, July 18th. We have a great show planned for you tonight. We are on part 12 of our series, The Lands of the Giants. And last week, we actually had impromptu information that came in from our sis, Cheryl, and she gave us some information regarding giants in the Americas. So very, very powerful information, a lot of remains that were found in the Ohio area, specifically the mounds that Ohio is known for. A lot of the remains were found in the mounds, and not just Ohio, but a couple of other places also. So we do want to finish up. We got a couple of other more pieces of the giants found in the Americas before we jump back into the reading of the giants over in Africa and the biblical areas. So with that said, let me bring on my co-hosts. I see Brother Sean and Sis Sandra is back. So let me bring on Brother Sean. Peace and love, brother. How are you?
Wholeness and power, sis. I'm well. Sure. How about you?
I'm well. It's good to hear your voice.
Likewise.
All right. Let me bring on Sis Sandra. Let me get this here. Peace and love, sis.
Peace and love to you too, Rhonda, and to you, Brother Sean, and to the family.
Wholeness and power, sis.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah, good to have you back.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of things going down. I had to
we understand.
take a breath.
Yeah, we enter and overstand. Trust us. So good to have you here for sure. Absolutely. Let's go into. Sorry, I was trying to make sure I had the book up. Let's go ahead on with the fuckery. We'll start with you, sis, since you've been out since last week. You have any go ahead on with the fuckery for the family? I know you got some built up.
I'm so tired of this immigration stuff. I'm so tired of our people getting out there, getting involved with Trump and that mess. I'm just sick of it. You know, it's just a diversion. That's all it is. They need to leave it alone. He's brought here to do all that stuff. He's an actor. And these our people getting up there just like, it's not right for them to treat them like that. They taking your jobs. They taking your land. Shut up. And let the Most High, or whoever, the universe take care of this stuff, because they got to go. Just like 84224 whatever.
832.
They got to go. He's setting things in order. And our people are just out there. Well, it ain't right. Well, anyway, that's what was bothering me and all this. The planet is going whack and berserk, and the heat is over the top, and people will run around killing each other like they retarded.
Indeed. Well, how did you fare with the earthquakes that hit out in Cali? I know you're further up north, if I remember correctly. Okay, you're central. I don't know why I thought you was north.
Right where they are, pretty much. And I was just a rolling. That's all you can do is kind of like roll with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what you going to do about it? But, it makes you sick to your stomach when you're going around in circles, or you're jolted, and you're like, I was at the kitchen sink, and I was thinking, maybe I'm fainting or something. I didn't know what was going on with me. I had to figure it out. I said, what is going on? I said, an earthquake. We haven't had them in so long.
It's
been a long time. And it's scary. I remember the Northridge earthquake when, the apartment buildings fell on this man. He was on the porch, and the second him and all the coverage of that, and they showed him just standing there because the thing then fell on him. They have to get him out. He's dead and stuff. But it brought back bad memories of the earthquake.
Right.
But and they said it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, and that's truth. And you really kind of let me get out of this part of the house. I don't want this part to fall on me. All right, let me move here. So it's an eye opener. And then now
Right.
they say California is not going to be falling into the ocean, and they done changed that lie. So there's it's a fable for us to not be falling into the ocean. That's not truth. So I don't know whether they're trying to pacify people or what they're trying to do by saying that's not true. The oceans are rising, the fault lines are active, so
right.
and Nibiru is in the house, so we ain't gonna forget old Nibiru. So I don't know. I mean, I can't give you analysis of it because it was really kind of like, what was that? What's going on? And then you see your house rolling. My house is on retro fitted, and I was just rolling.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got you. Wow. Okay then. Okay, well it'll be interesting. I thought about you because someone had taken a picture where I'm at of the sun rising. It was a beautiful picture because I've been trying to document the direction that the sun, is rising, because I'm like, I know it's off because I can't catch it rising anymore on my security camera. And I thought it was south, and I thought maybe it was northish. And so the person took the picture, and I knew the exact location. And it's definitely not east. Yeah, it's northish.
Oh, it's in the north, rising in the south, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Setting north and kind of rising in the southish. So
yep.
It's interesting, but I know you all in Cali are seeing it really, clearly because Rap the News is still putting out some incredible footage that he is capturing out in Cali. So things are really jumping off, that's for sure.
Well, some of the history information I have on Nibiru is that when Nibiru makes his return, it's going to come this way. So the earthquakes and all of that stuff was what I read and I heard about what Nibiru was going to do when it came back on this return journey. Circling the planet. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
So
interesting.
I'm not surprised because they have the return journey and what's going to happen.
Very.
They're coming out with information that the beaches are not going to be the same because the water is rising. They're telling it now. Yeah,
because I noticed they're putting news stories out there about folks getting infection and bacterial flesh eating. And just saw what supposedly and allegedly this lady, a shark tore her ass up. I'm like, well, damn. So if that
the animals, the animals are getting aggressive. The animals are getting very, and they're attacking. They used to say
especially if you ain't in tune. If you're not in tune, they go on after people because you can literally be standing right next to someone, and based on your frequency, the mosquitoes be tearing their ass up. They're like, "You not getting bit?" I'm like, no. And then I kind of chuckled to myself. I'm like, probably what's coming out of your pores based on your diet and on your frequency. So, yeah, this stuff is really, really interesting. Very interesting.
Another story they have, too, is that people are flushing their drugs down the toilet, and the animals, like the crocodiles and alligators and all that kind of stuff, are going to be affected by it. People have been doing that for a long time. I don't know why they do
have. Yeah, they have. So the animals should have been getting high.
Yeah.
That's
and
the case as long as people been on them scripts.
Right, and they coming after you instead of you going after them. So they need to put that, changing their brains like that. And of course, the sonar is changing. A lot of the fish are dying. Lots of fish are dying. Lots of them.
True. Now, it's interesting, and Brother Sean has sent me a video I'm going to play tonight because it talks, that person has a theory. It might even, I can't remember, Brother Sean, if it was you or Sis Cheryl, a theory on that whole entire ocean life, and because the video is about giants, which kind of made me think of things another way, because I know Brother Kalai was saying that a lot of these animal species, because this is cleanup time for everybody, so it's just not, quote, quote, us, because there's multiple different species on Mother Earth that should not be here, that are not natural and indigenous to her. So that includes, a lot of these animals and, marine life and stuff that we see as well. And I had to think about that when he said that. I said, you know what, he's right, because usually the invasive animals, more than likely, they should not be here. The invasive fish or whatever and marine life, they definitely should not be here. So it does not surprise me that, vibrations on the sonar are changing, because some even say that dolphins are from, I think, Sirius, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought it was Venus.
Okay, Venus. Yeah, I don't know why I think Sirius, but anyhow, that's just one example, and that's not even going to the deep layers that we don't see. So yeah, it's going to get, not going to get, it is getting really, really interesting. So we know that things are going on in the sea as well, because you see these beached whales coming up to the surface and just like dying. So yeah, everything is changing as it should. And that's why I say all the time that, you either vibrate and adapt, or you're just not going to be able to survive with the switch. It's just the bottom line, because she's changing her frequency. And I don't care how arrogant folks want to get, it's what she wants. She sets the tone. And now that she's out of that sleeping state, she sets it the way she wants to. And if you don't like it, you just get purged off. So, but very, very interesting, sis. Very interesting. Brother Sean, go ahead on with the fuckery. Mm-hmm.
That's what people don't get. People think that they're just going to be able to lock into one frequency and be all right. Or like she's going to stop at one of these lower levels that they're comfortable at.
It's not going to happen.
You have to be constantly changing with her.
Yep.
It's consistent. It's moment to moment. You're not in tune with it. You're not going to know none of this. You're not going to feel it happening. You're going to think it's something else. But to get on that immigrant thing, now I just look at how far these immigrants travel, the territories that they travel through. I mean, you have to pay them drug lords in order to have safe passage through their territories.
Right.
So somebody's paying for those people to make it all the way over. And then you mentioned the Morgellons and all these other diseases. All of them, a lot of those people are carrying diseases. Just like how we talked about the book of demonology, how they said that they take over. We being attacked. Again. They trying to take over our shit again.
That's right.
And our people feeling sorry for these, let's call them what it is, these mercenaries, because they're carrying out a plot to destroy us.
Exactly.
I don't give a flying fuck about one of them fucking immigrants. And any of you motherfuckers that feel sorry for them bitches, go on, get. Go stand in the fucking line with them. See what they do to your motherfucking ass.
You know, Brother Sean, if they read this book, How the White Man Got So Rich, they'll understand what they did to get us where we are right now. Immigration.
The white man ain't rich. He ain't never been rich. That's why he had to make up fake currency.
Yeah.
To be rich, you got to have a soul. To be rich, you got to be in tune with mama. Rich ain't based on no material thing. So that's the only way that they could try and do that. And then they got our dumb asses to think that material wealth was real.
Right.
That's all they ever did. They just tricked our dumb asses. That's it. They ain't never had shit. They ain't never gonna have shit. And they gotta get the fuck out of here. But they gonna suffer like a motherfucker before they go. Because they tried to make us suffer. Because they made mama suffer. They made the animals suffer.
Mm-hmm.
The animals, we ain't got to teach them a goddamn thing. They know who is who. They know who ain't gonna
Right.
win.
Right.
So, of course, they're attacking them motherfuckers. They've been attacking them. Every opportunity they get, they trying to tear one of them motherfuckers in half. And they don't even eat them. They don't like the taste of that alien meat.
Mm. And, you know, my whole thing about the immigration, we do know that it's, you know, to try to boost numbers and try to still tap dance around the subject of who's indigenous to the land. But, again, from a spiritual perspective, everyone needs to be in their right place. Or suffer the consequences, because the land is showing you that. Mother Earth is showing you that. Mm-hmm. So people can keep, you know, bull-essing themselves all they want. Just suffer the consequences. Mm-hmm. Just be ready for the consequences. That's what I want to say. Be ready for the consequences. Don't come whining when the disease level rise up. When the UV radiation continues to bite you in the ass, don't stop fighting. You should already know what it is. And if you don't, oh well, you should know. Because, again, as I said last week, and I've been saying for quite some time now, folks that's running around taking other people's identity, putting all of these titles on yourself, okay, you're going to suffer the consequences behind that. So, you know, the choice is there. Choice is there. It's over with. This shit is done with. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Sean.
Okay, let's say I do have some compassion for the immigrants. Y'all Democrats is asking them to send their children first, telling them it gives them a better chance at getting here.
Mm-hmm.
But what you think the Democrats doing with them children? A lot of them people never see their children again. They ain't citizens no motherfucking where. Don't nobody know who they are. They taking their kids too. They're being victimized too, all the way around the board.
Absolutely.
George Soros, the one that's funding that whole thing down at the border.
Yeah, because they really look good, don't they? They really clean and rested. For somebody who's traveled so long distance, it's like somebody's taking care of them.
Oh, yeah, they being well taken care of. I mean, other than the diseases that they carrying. But they want to keep them alive long enough to get them in here.
Right. And, let's just not forget what's going on over in Haiti, what they didn't rename Dominican Republic, kicking Haitians off of their own shit on the man-made border side of the Dominican. Folks are going to have to answer. They're going to answer for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to answer for that. So it is what it is. Let everybody keep bullshitting themselves, and as things continue to heat up and folks not being able to adapt and start getting sick, don't say that you were not told, because everybody needs to be back in their rightful place. And burying your head in the sand, pretending that you're this, or don't wanting to research who you really are, is not going to help you. And that's not only for folks calling themselves Caucasian Europeans or Hispanic. What the fuck is a Hispanic? But for, folks calling themselves African Americans as well. Everybody, you are accountable for researching your bloodline, knowing who the fuck you are. You should no longer want to walk around lost like that. You claiming titles and stuff that was handed down to you, and then want to get indignant with somebody talking about something hundreds of years ago, in some case thousands of years ago, and when I asked you to go back 4 motherfucking generations, you can't even do it. You don't even know where your folks been 4 fucking generations ago. It's sad. Because you want to live in fantasy land. You don't give a shit about yourself. You don't give a shit about your children, children. Cleaning up your bloodline. Breaking generational curses. So don't be surprised when you get hit in the ass with these different vibratory changes. This ain't the age of, well, I think. You should know by now. And if not, you should damn sure be researching to know. So the choice is everybody. That's to everyone. Everyone is getting called on the carpet, per se, with the bullshit. It's no longer acceptable to be ignorant. It's just not acceptable. And then you want to argue with folks that have gotten their shit together and know who the fuck they are. You want to try to argue with them and tell them, look, get the fuck out of my face with that. Again, you can't go back 4 motherfucking generations, but you going to tell me where I was 100 years ago, 1,000 a year. If you don't get the fuck out of my face, you better. Grow up. You want to keep acting like a child and being a slave, that's your business. But those of us that know, not guessing, not taking on somebody else's doctrine or title, we've moved on. We've moved on. This ain't kindergarten. This ain't even fucking graduate school. This is doctrine level. Get your shit together. Sweep around your own doorstep. I don't give a fuck what Trump doing. Lump, press, no. I don't give a fuck what none of them are doing. Sweep around your own doorstep. You are responsible for you. And until you can clean your shit up, ain't no need you looking outward, worried about what the fuck somebody else is doing. And who can save you? Because ain't nobody coming to save your black ass, your African American ass, your Moorish ass, your European ass, your Caucasian ass, your Hispanic ass, your Dominican ass, your Asian ass. Ain't nobody coming to save you. So if you want to keep waiting for them to save you, go right the fuck on. But don't say that you were not told. All right, I'm off my soapbox. All right, Brother Sean, you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I ran across this article, and I apologize. Shit, I don't remember who I got it from. This is called Their Family Bought Land. Okay, so now already you know it's going to be some fuck shit involved. This just came out July 15th, a couple of days ago. Their family, this is off of ProPublica. Their family bought land 1 generation after slavery. The Reals brothers spent 8 years in jail for refusing to leave it. In the spring of 2011, the brothers Melvin Davis and LaCurtis Reals were the talk of Carteret County on the central coast of North Carolina. Some people said that the brothers were righteous. Others thought that they had lost their minds. That March, Melvin and LaCurtis stood in court and refused to leave the land that they had lived on all their lives, a portion of which had, without their knowledge or consent, been sold to developers years before. The brothers were among dozens of Reals family members who considered the land theirs. But Melvin and LaCurtis had a particular stake in it. Melvin, who was 64, with loose black curls combed in a ponytail, ran a club there and lived in an apartment above it. He'd established a career shrimping in the river that bordered the land, and his sense of self was tied to the water. LaCurtis, who was 53, had spent years building a house near the river's edge, just steps from his mother's. Their great-grandfather had bought the land 100 years earlier, when he was a generation removed from slavery. The property, 65 marshy acres that ran along Silver Dollar Road from the woods to the river's sandy shore, was racked by storms. Some call it the bottom, okay? And those in the South, y'all know what the bottom mean, that marshland, or the end of the world. Melvin and LaCurtis' grandfather, Mitchell Reals, was a deacon. He farmed watermelons, beets, and peas, and raised chickens and hogs. Churches held tent revivals on the waterfront, and kids played in the river, a prime spot for catching red-tailed shrimp and crabs bigger than shoes. During the later years of racial segregation laws, the land was home to the only beach in the county that welcomed black families. It's our own little black country club, Melvin and LaCurtis' sister, Mamie, liked to say. In 1970, when Mitchell died, he had one final wish. Whatever you do, he told his family on the night that he passed away, don't let the white man have this land. Mitchell didn't trust the courts, so he didn't leave a will. Instead, he let the land become heirs' property, a form of ownership which descendants inherit an interest, like holding stocks in a company. The practice began during Reconstruction when many African Americans didn't have access to the legal system, and it continued through the Jim Crow era when black communities were suspicious of white Southerners, Southern courts. In the United States today, 76% of African Americans do not have a will, more than twice the percentage of white Americans. So now I'm going to just stop just right quick to put something on there before I go on. First of all, I question the fact that they purchased it right after slavery. Oh, okay, right. Then. Okay, blood, whatever you want to motherfucking say. Okay, second of all, that is very, very, very extremely common in the South, that when family land, you have a lot of it in the South, it's split up among the family members, and it is known that that land cannot be sold. It is to be passed down from generation to generation. Now, and that's just a known fact in the South. Okay, so anybody that's from the South with land in their family, a lot of land, y'all know what the fuck I'm talking about. Now, do some of us break that code and go against our ancestors and sell it? Absolutely they do, but you better believe they wait until Big Mama and them is gone to pull that fuck shit, okay? And they could only do that, unfortunately, because they don't have, Big Mama and them didn't leave a will or trust, because you really should be putting this stuff in a trust. The land should be in a trust, because it's never supposed to be sold. So you can eliminate all of that fuck shit on somebody waiting on all of the elders to die, or the one family member that's going to fight them from selling the land. Put it in a trust. It could never be sold. So anyhow, that is common practice in the South. When there is a lot of land, our ancestors split it up among the family members. Okay, and they had every right to not want to put it in the court system, but unfortunately, because that could work against us in two ways. Number one, if you have trifling ass heirs that go against and sell the land, or you have these slick ass developers sitting there waiting for opportunities like this to happen, because they're sitting on what they call prime property. All right. Okay. Many assume that not having a will keeps land in the family. In reality, it jeopardizes ownership. David Dietrich, a former co-chair of the American Bar Association Property Preservation Task Force, has called heirs property the worst problem you never heard of. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has recognized it as the leading cause of black involuntary land loss. Heir property is estimated to make up more than a third of Southern black-owned land, 3.5 million acres, worth more than $28 billion. These landowners are vulnerable to laws and loopholes that allow speculators and developers to acquire their property. And I might add, pennies on the fucking dollar. Black families watch as their land is auctioned on the courthouse steps or forced into sale against their will. Between 1910 and 1997, now this is deep, y'all. Between 1910 and 1997, African Americans, and I'm putting that in quote, lost 90% of their farmland.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make this clear. That motherfucking Nucera that you all was running around pumping, and I'm going to call out the Caucasians, that was for the melanated farmers suing the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. corporation over land. But just like always, you hijack the shit and make it into something about you all. And then folks want to know why these resets and all of this shit never goes forward. Because I done took and told you, like Grandma and them said, I done took and told y'all ass that it's about the land and it's about the people. Not no fucking stinking ass fiat. It is about the land. All right. This problem is a major contributor to America's racial wealth gap. The median wealth among black families is about 1/10 of that of white families. Now, as reparations have become a subject of national debate, the issue of black land loss is receiving renewed attention. A group of economics and statisticians recently calculated that since 1910, black farmers have been stripped of hundreds of billions of dollars because of lost land. Nathan Rosenberg, a lawyer and a researcher in the group, told me, if you want to understand wealth inequality in this country, you have to understand black land loss. I'm going to took and tell y'all again, melanated people. The wealth is in the land and the people. Always was, always will be. All right. By the time of Melvin and LaCurtis hearing in 2011, they had spent decades fighting to keep the waterfront on Silver Dollar Road. They've been warned that they would go to jail if they didn't comply with the court order to stay off the land. And they felt betrayed by the laws that had allowed it to be taken from them. They had been baptized in that water. You're going to go there, take my dreams from me like that, LaCurtis asked on the stand. How about it was you? They expected to argue their case in court that day. Instead, the judge ordered them sent to jail for civil contempt. Hearing the ruling, Melvin handed his 83-year-old mother, Gertrude, his flip phone and his gold watch. As the eldest son, he had promised relatives that he would assume responsibility for the family. I can take it, he said. LaCurtis looked at the floor and shook his head. He had thought he'd be home by that afternoon. He even left his house unlocked. The bailiff, who had never booked anyone in a civil superior court, had only one set of handcuffs. She put a cuff on each brother's wrist and led them out the back door. The brothers hadn't been charged with a crime or given a jury trial. Still, they believed so strongly in their right to the property that they spent the next 8 years fighting the case from jail, becoming two of the longest serving inmates for civil contempt in his U.S. history. So I'm going to just pause again. This is a testament to these brothers' love for their family land, because it's deeper than just the physical land. It's a spiritual connection. And here we have folks, because we know a lot of folks, especially folks that live up north, but you're really from the South, who, you moved, you left the land, and, we understand that because you had to make the fucking fiat and all of that, but have such disregard, such disrespect for the land that just don't give a shit. So I'm going to move on. Land was an ideological priority for black families after the Civil War, when nearly 4 million people were freed from slavery. Okay, so they can miss me with that bullshit. We already know why the land was a priority, because it was always their land. On January 12, 1865, just before emancipation, the Union Army General William Teshome Sherman met with 20 black ministers in Savannah, Georgia, and asked them what they needed. The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land. Their spokesperson, the Reverend Garrison Frazier, told Sherman. Freedom, he said, was placing us where we could reap the fruits of our own labor. Sherman issued a special field order declaring that 400,000 acres formerly held by Confederates be given to African Americans, which came to be known as the promise of 40 acres and a mule. The following year, Congress passed the Southern Homestead Act, opening up an additional 46 million acres of public land for Union supporters and freed people. The promises never materialized. In 1876, near the end of Reconstruction, only about 5% of black families in the Deep South owned land. But a new group of black landowners soon established themselves. Many had experience in the field as they began buying farms, often in places with arid or swampy soil, especially along the coast. Okay, so again, those of us from the South, especially on that coastline, y'all already know what it is. We already know that your family's been there hundreds of years, so this should be no surprise to any of you, what I'm reading. By 1920, African Americans, who made up 10% of the population, represented 14% of Southern farm owners. A white supremacist backlash spread across the South at the end of the 19th century. Members of a movement called themselves White Caps, led by poor white farmers, accosted black landowners at night, beating them or threatening murder if they didn't abandon their homes. In Lincoln County, Mississippi, white caps killed a man named Henry List, and more than 50 African Americans fled the town in a single day. Over 2 months in 1912, violent white mobs in Forsyth County, Georgia, drove out almost the entire black population, more than 1,000 people. So I'm going to stop here, because those from Georgia and live in Georgia, you know today that Forsyth County, matter of fact, that's the county that Oprah had went up there years ago when they was talking shit out the side of their neck. Okay, now it's grown a lot, but it is still known as very racist. So I'm going to read this again for Caucasians. And specifically, if you live in Forsyth County, you need to enter and understand the motherfucking history, and that's just in that little area. So as folks sit there of, quote, quote, Caucasian European descent, talking about who belongs where, let this marinate again. Over 2 months in 1912, violent white mobs in Forsyth County, Georgia, drove out almost the entire black population, more than 1,000 people. This was in 1912. Forsyth County to this day is listed as majority white suburbs of Georgia. and is known for being racist. So the land that they are sitting on motherfucking illegally was indigenous people's shit. Ray Winbush, the director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, told me there is this idea that most blacks were lynched because they did something untoward to a young woman. That's not true. Most black men were lynched between 1890 and 1920 because whites wanted their land. By the second half of the 20th century, a new form of dispossession had emerged, officially sanctioned by the courts and targeting heir property owners without clear title. These landowners are exposed in a variety of ways. They don't qualify for certain Department of Agriculture loans to purchase livestock or cover the cost of planting. Individual heirs can't use their land as collateral with banks and other institutions and are so denied private financing and federal home improvement loans. Although you don't need to be involved with no bank putting up your family generational land as collateral any fucking way. That's a trap. But anyhow, I'll keep going. They generally aren't eligible for disaster relief. In 2005, now y'all should know this, Hurricane Katrina laid bare the extent of the problem in New Orleans, where 25,000 families who applied for rebuilding grants had heirs' property. One Louisiana real estate attorney estimated that up to $165 million of recovery funds were never claimed because of title issues. And so I'm going to stop because right after that hurricane or whatever, I would go to New Orleans for the Jazz Fest. And so I got a chance to talk to people who lived through that. And a lot of the melanated folks who had lived in New Orleans generation upon generation upon generation, they had given up because some had gotten a story that the motherfucking courthouse was flooded and the records were lost, and they were going through so much red tape to get the necessary paperwork to claim that that land was there to get the relief, that they just walked away from it, or they didn't have money to rebuild, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Heirs are rarely aware of the tenuous nature of their ownership. Even when they are, clearing a title is often an unaffordable and complex process which requires tracking down every living heir, and there are few lawyers who specialize in that field. Nonprofits often pick up the slack. The Center for Heirs Property Preservation in South Carolina has cleared more than 200 titles in the past decade, almost all of them for African American families, protecting land valued at nearly $14 million. Okay, so that's only 200 titles valued at $14 million. Josh Weldon, the center chief operating officer, told me that it had mapped out 100,000 acres of heir property in South Carolina. He said that investors hoping to build golf courses or hotels can target these plots. We had to be really mindful that we didn't share those maps with anyone, because otherwise there'll be a shopping catalog, he told me, and it's not as if it dries up. New heirs property is being created every day. Okay, so in South Carolina, they have already started in the low country or land. Those that are familiar with South Carolina, you should know Hilton Head, which it borders Georgia, and now it's like this plush golf resort. That was all melanated people's land. I was shocked when I found that out. And then I started paying attention. And since then, they've been going along that coast, buying up different lands or sitting back, just like with these brothers in their situation, waiting to pounce on folks' land to buy them up, to flip them and turn them into resorts. All right. Through interviews and courthouse records, I analyzed more than 36 cases from recent years in which heirs property owners lost land that for many of them was not only their sole asset, but also a critical part of their heritage and their sense of home. The problem has been especially acute in Cataract County. Beaufort, the county seat, was once the site of a major refugee camp for freed people. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Those of you from South Carolina, if your people said that you're from South Carolina, you need to go do your research and go back in those census records and those county records, because that entire coastline was nothing but melanated people. And I guarantee you, if your folks say you were from the Carolinas, your folks are going to span across that entire coast of South Carolina, some over to North Carolina coast, some over to Georgia coast. And there's different places in South Carolina where the towns are literally named after, the towns and the counties are named after our ancestors. And I bullshit you not, because a couple of my people are from Carolina on one side, and I know other people that are from Carolina on one side, on their side, and one of the people, they told me that there was a town named after their folks. Sure enough, I found it. Another person didn't tell me. They just told me the last name. So I said to the person, is your people, were they living next to blah, blah, blah town? How'd you know that? I said, because I pulled up that name on the map, and their mouth dropped. They said, yeah, it's a town now. I said, yeah, that's how I found out. And they said, yeah, we owned rather a lot of acres and acres of land, and it goes back pretty far, and the land has to stay in the family, woo, 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 woo. So I'm saying all of that to say, that's why I'm so strong when people want to argue with other people on who the fuck we are, when we can prove who we are just by going back. And you can go back hundreds of years and find your people. All right. And more than likely, you're not going to see no slave on those records. You're not going to see it, people. What you're going to see is landowner, farmer. The women are going to be called either home provider or house aid. You're not going to see slave on those records. If you are African, it will say African. So again, there's no excuse for melanated people to be running around here fucking talking about they from Africa unless you went back in the records and it fucking said your folks such and so is African. And then if that's the case, you find that on them records, then go into the motherfucking National Archives and pull the ship manifest. And you will know exactly where your folks came. All right. So black families eventually built homes near where tents had stood. Okay, so now supposedly, not supposedly, because they even show this in the Civil War records. After the Civil War, they acted like they was giving out land. No, bitch, you wasn't giving out a fucking thing. That was already folks' land. And they had lost. So either you had pushed them out of the areas where they lived and gave them that low country land because you thought it was shit land. Because if you search those records, you will find that your people lived a little bit more inland. They didn't live exactly on the coast. Okay, but they call themselves being nickel-ass slick, giving us the shit land or the marshes. Okay, but now they greedy ass, they want those marshes back so they can build the resorts and build, multi-million-dollar homes on it. All right, so here we go. Black families eventually built homes near where the tents had stood. But in the 1970s, the town became a tourist destination with upscale restaurants, boutiques, and docks for yachts. Real estate values surged, and out-of-town speculators flooded the county. David Selesky, a historian of the North Carolina coast, told me you can't talk to an African-American family who own land in those counties and not find a story where they feel the land was taken from them against their will through legal trickery. Beaufort is a quaint town lined with coastal cottages and colonial homes. When I arrived last fall, I drove 20 miles to Silver Dollar Road, where Melvin and LaCurtis family lives, in dozens of trailers and wood panel houses scattered under pine and gum trees. Melvin and LaCurtis' mother, Gertrude, greeted me at her house and led me into her living room, where porcelain angels lined one wall. Gertrude is tough and quiet, her high voice muffled by tobacco that she packs into her cheeks. Now that's old school Southern. That's called snuff. For you Northerners that don't know that, and I'm sure she got that motherfucking coffee can on the side. That's a separate story. Anyway, people call her Miss Big Shit. It's because I don't pay them no mind, she told me. The last of Mitchell Reel's children to remain on the property, she is the family matriarch. Grandchildren, nieces, and nephews let themselves into her house to pick up mail or take out her trash. Around dinner time on the day I was there, the trickle of visitors turned into a crowd. Gertrude went into the kitchen, coated fish fillets, cornmeal, and fried them for everyone. Okay, so you African Americans, where the fuck you think you got the concept of eating fish like we do? And those of you that's familiar with shrimp and grits, that is truly a coastal South Carolina, Georgia thing. Okay, so the fish, even up north, when our people, knew how to fish and make these different dishes, where the fuck you think all that came from? Oh, okay then. Oh, I forgot. That got passed over from Africa all the way. Oh, okay then. All right, here we go. Her daughter, Mamie, told me that Melvin and LaCurtis had reveled in the land as kids, playing among the inky eels and conch shells. In the evenings, the brothers would sit on the porch with their cousins a red burning to keep the mosquitoes away. On weekends, a pastor strolled down the dirt street, robed in his white, his congregation singing, wade in the water. But Curtis was shy, humble kid who liked working in the cornfield. Melvin was his opposite. When the school bus showed up, when he came home, the crowd would come with him and stay all night, Gertrude said. When Melvin was 9, he built a boat from pine planks and began tugging it along the shore. A neighbor offered to teach him how to shrimp. And in the summer, Melvin dropped nets off the man's trawler. He left school in the 10th grade. His catch was bringing him in around $1,000 a week. Okay, so he was getting paid. That was getting paid for back up in the day. He developed a taste for sleek cars, big jewelry, and women, and started buying his siblings Chuck Taylors and Timberland. Gertrude was the administrator of the estate. All right, so anybody that knows trust, they talk in trust language right there. All right. She left school in the 8th grade and wasn't accustomed to navigating the judicial system. But after Mitchell's death, she secured a court ruling declaring that the land belonged to his heirs. The judge read, the surviving 11 children or descendants of children of Mitchell Reels are the owners of the lands exclusive of any other claim of anyone. In 1978, Gertrude's uncle, Shreddick Reels, tried to carve out for himself the most valuable slice of the land on the river. He used a legal doctrine called adverse possession, which required him to prove that he had occupied the waterfront for years, continuously and publicly against the owner's wishes. Shredwick, who went by Shade, yeah, he's shady as fuck, and worked as a tire salesman in New Jersey, that's where he got that slick shit from, hadn't lived on Silver Dollar Road in 27 years. But he claimed that tenants had stood in for him. He had built a house on the waterfront in 1950, and relatives had rented it or run it as a club at various times since. Some figured that it was Shade's land. He also produced a deed that his father, Elijah, had given him in 1950, even though Mitchell, another of Elijah's sons, had owned the land at the time. Okay, so this that fuck shit I'm talking about, with family being shady and motherfucking sneaky, and it not being about the land and them trying to get fiat dollars. That's why you need to take care of the land and put it in a trust. Because nobody should own it. You're the caretakers of it. And it's there for generations and generations to live upon it. You take care of it, and it takes care of you. All right. So Shade made his argument through an obscure law called Torrens Act. Under Torrens, Shade didn't have to abide by the formal rules of a court. Instead, he could simply prove adverse possession to a lawyer whom the court appointed and whom he paid. The Torrens Act had long had a bad reputation, especially in Carteret. It's a legal way to steal land. Theodore Barnes, a land broker there, told me. The law was intended to help clear up muddled titles, but in 1932, a law professor at the University of North Carolina found that it had been co-opted by big business. One lawyer said that people saw it as a scheme whereby rich men could seize the lands of the poor. Even Shade's lawyer, Nelson Taylor, acknowledged that it was abused. He told me that his own grandfather had lost 50-acre plot to Torrens. First time he knew anything about it was when somebody told him that he didn't own it anymore, Taylor said. That was happening more often than it ever should have. Mitchell's kids and grandkids were puzzled that Shade's maneuver was legal. They had Mitchell's deed and a court order declaring that the land was theirs, and they had all grown up on that waterfront. How can they take this land from us and we own it, Melvin said. We've been there all our days. Gertrude's brother Calvin, who handled legal matters for the family, hired Claude Wheatley III, the son of one of the most powerful lawyers in town, to represent the siblings at a Torrance hearing about the claim. Gertrude, Melvin, and his cousin Ralphie Reed, the only surviving heirs who attended the hearing, said that they left confident that the waterfront hadn't gone to Shade. No one in the family thought at the end of the day that it was his land and we were going to walk away from it forever, Ralph Lee told me. Wheatley told me a different story. In his memory, the Torrance hearing was chaotic, but the heirs agreed to give Shade, who has since died, the waterfront. When I pressed Wheatley, he conceded that not all the heirs liked the outcome, but he said that Calvin had consented. I would have been upset if Calvin had not notified them because I generally don't get involved in those things without having a family representative in charge, he told me. He said that he never had a written agreement with Calvin, just a conversation. Calvin died shortly after the hearing. The lawyer examining Shade's case granted him the waterfront, and Wheatley signed off on the decision. The Reals family, though it didn't yet know it, had lost the rights to the land on the shoreline. LeCurtis had set up a trailer near the river a couple of years earlier in 1977. He was working as a brick mason and often hosted men from the neighborhood for Budweiser and beans in the evening. Melvin had become the center of a local economy on the shore. He taught the men how to work the water, and he paid the women to prepare his catch, pressing the soft crevice above the shrimp eyes and popping off their heads. He had a son, little Melvin, and in the summers, his nephews and cousins came to the beach too. One morning, he took 8 of them out on the water and then announced that he made a mistake. Only 4 were allowed on the boat. He threw them overboard one by one. We're thinking we're going to drown, one cousin told me, and he jumps off the boat with us and teaches us how to swim. In 1982, Melvin and Gertrude received a trespassing notice from Shade. They took it to a lawyer who informed them that Shade now legally owned a little more than 13 acres of the 65-acre plot. The family was stunned and suspicious of the claim's validity. Many of the tenants listed to prove Shade's continuous possessions were vague or unrecognizable, like Mitchell Reel's boy or Julian Leonard, whom Gertrude had never heard of. She had a sister named Julia and a brother named Leonard, but no memory of either one of them living on the waterfront. The lawyer who granted the land to Shade had also never reported the original court ruling that Gertrude had won, as he should have done. Shade's ownership would be almost impossible to overturn. There's a 1-year window to appeal Torrance decision in North Carolina, and the family had missed it by 2 years. Soon after, Shade sold the land to developers. The Reals knew that if condos or a marina were built on the waterfront, the remaining 50 acres of Silver Dollar Road could be taxed, not as small homes on swampy fields, but as a high-end resort. If they fell behind on the high taxes, the county could auction off their property. It would break our family right up, Melvin told me. You leave here, you got no more freedom. This kind of tax sale has a long history in the disposition of heirs property owners. In 1992, the NAACP accused local officials of intentionally inflating taxes to push out black families on the Fusky, a South Carolina sea island that has become one of the hottest real estate markets on the Atlantic coast. Property taxes had gone up as much as 700% in a single decade. It is clear that the county has pursued a pattern of conduct that disproportionately displaces or evicts African Americans from Dufusky, thereby segregating the island and the county as a whole. The NAACP wrote to the county officials. Nearby Hilton Head, I told y'all, nearby Hilton Head, which as recently as 2 decades ago comprised several thousand acres of heirs property, now by one estimate has a mere 200 such acres left. So I want y'all to sink that in. From several thousand acres to 200. Investors fly into the county each October to bid on tax delinquent properties in a local gymnasium. In the upscale town of Summerville, South Carolina, I met Wendy Reed, who in 2012 was late paying $83.81 in taxes on the lot she had lived on for nearly 4 decades. A former state politician named Thomas Limehouse, who owned a luxury hotel nearby, bought Reed's property at a tax sale for $2,000, an eighth of its value. Reed had a year to redeem her property, but when she tried to pay her debt, officials told her that she couldn't get the land back because she wasn't officially listed as her grandmother's heir. She had to go through probate court. Here, she faced another obstacle. Heirs in South Carolina have 10 years to probate an estate after the death of the owner, and Reed's grandmother had died 30 years before. Okay, so I'm going to say again, that's why you're supposed to have your shit in trust, because even with the will, you will have stinking ass family members contest your stuff and will tie it up in probate court. But nothing trumps, no pun intended, trust law. Okay, your stuff doesn't go through probate court with trust law. All right, so it says tax clerks in the county estimated that each year they sent about a quarter of the people who tried to redeem delinquent property to probate court because they aren't listed on the deed or named by the court as an heir. Limehouse told me to not probate the estate and not pay the taxes shouldn't be a reason for special disposition. When you let things go, you can't blame the county. Reed has been fighting the case in court since 2014. I'm still not leaving, she told me. You have to pack my stuff and put me out. For years, the conflict on Silver Dollar Road was dormant, and Melvin continued expanding his businesses. Each week, Gertrude packed 2-pound bags of shrimp to sell at the farmer's market, along with petunias and gardenias from her yard. Melvin was also remodeling a nightclub, Fantasy Island, on the shore. He decked it out with disco lights and painted it white, he said, so that on the water it would shine like gold. The majority of the property remained in the family, including the land on which Gertrude's house stood. But LaCurtis had been building a home in place of his trailer on the contested waterfront. It was the most pretty spot, he told me. I'd walk the water and look at my yard and see how beautiful it was. He collected the signatures of other heirs to prove that he had permission and a registered deed. When real estate agents or speculators came to the shore, Melvin tried to scare them away. A developer told me that once, when he showed the property to potential buyers, Melvin had a roof rack behind his pickup, jumped out and snatched a gun out. It was the only time that Melvin took out his rifle. You show people that you got to protect yourself, he told me. Any fool who wouldn't do that would be crazy. His instinct had always been to confront a crisis head on. When hurricanes came through and most people sought higher ground, he'd go out to his, there must be trailer, and steer, or trawler, okay, it might be some type of boat, and steer it into the storm. The Reels family began to believe that there was a conspiracy against them. They watched jet skis crawl slowly past in the river and shiny SUVs drive down Silver Dollar Road. They suspected that people were scouting the property. Melvin said that he received phone calls from mysterious men issuing threats. I thought people were out to get me, he said. Gertrude remembers that one day at the farmer's market, a white customer sneered that she was the only thing standing in the way of development. In 1986, Billy Dean Brown, a partner at a real estate investment company called Adams Creek Associates, had bought Shade's waterfront plot, sight unseen, to divide and sell. Brown was attracted to the strength of the Torrens title, which he knew was effectively I can't get it together, y'all. Sorry. When he discovered that Melvin and LaCurtis lived on the property, he wasn't troubled. Brown was known among colleagues as Little Caesar, a small man who finished any job he started. In the early 2000s, he hired lawyer Carl Wheatley III, the man once tasked with protecting the Reels family land, was now being paid to evict them from it. Melvin and LaCurtis saw Wheatley's involvement as a clear conflict of interest. Their lawyer tried to disqualify Wheatley, arguing that he was breaching confidentiality and switching sides, but the judge denied the motion. Earlier this year, I met Wheatley in his office a few blocks from the county courthouse. Tall and opposing, he has a ruddy face and a teal blue stare. We sat under the head of the staff warhog, and he chewed tobacco as we spoke. He told me that he had no confidential information about the Reels and that he never represented Melvin and LaCurtis. He represented their mother and her siblings. Melvin won't own 1 square inch until his mother dies, he said. In 2004, Wheatley got a court order prohibiting the brothers from going on the waterfront property. The Reels family began a series of appeals and filings asking for a decree to be set aside. But judge after judge ruled that the family had waited too long to contest the Torrens decision. LaCurtis didn't talk about the case and tried to hide his stress, but Mamie told me you could see him wearing it. Occasionally, she would catch a glimpse of him pacing the road early in the morning. When he first understood that he could face time in jail for remaining in his house, he tried removing the support underneath it, thinking that he could hire someone to wrench the foundation from the mud and move it elsewhere. Gertrude wouldn't allow him to go through with it. You're not going with the house nowhere, she told him. That's yours. At 4 a.m. on spring day in 2007, Melvin was asleep in his apartment above the club when he heard a boom like a crash of thunder. He went to the shore and found his trawler named Nancy J. was sinking. Yellow plastic gloves, canned beans, and wooden crab boxes floated in the water. There was a large hole in the hull, and Melvin realized that the boom had been an explosion. He filed a report with the sheriff's office, but it never confirmed whether an explosion was used or whether it was an accident, and no charges were filed. Melvin began to wake with a start at night, pull out his flashlight, and scan the fields for intruders. By the time of the brothers' hearing in 2011, Melvin had lost so much weight that LaCurtis joked that he could have stored water in the caverns from his collarbones. The family had come to accept that the dispute wasn't going away. If the brothers had to go to jail, they would. Even after the judge in the hearing found them guilty of civil contempt, Melvin said, "I ain't backing down." LaCurtis called home later that day. "It'll be all right," he told Gertrude. "We'll be home soon." One of the most pernicious legal mechanisms used to dispossess heirs' property owners is called a partition action. In the course of generation, heirs tend to disperse and lose any connection to the land. So I'm going to read that again. For folks that's from down south and your family got land, okay, this is what's happening because you're losing connection to the land. Speculators can buy off the interest of a single heir, and just one heir or speculator, no matter how minute his share, can force the sale of an entire plot through the courts. Okay, so like they already said in this article, and like I already told y'all, and those of you whose family got land, generational land in the South, you know how Big Mama and them set it up. They split them plots up by different family members. And nobody could sell a land. It's supposed to be passed down from one generation to the next. All right, but if you leaving and, thinking that cousin such and so gonna take care of the land, and let's say even if cousin such and so lived there all of their lives, and cousin such and so's generation keeps living there all of their lives, but you got one fuck cousin from up north that want to be slick about some shit, winds up selling the land. So here we go. Andrew Kroll, an associate professor of history of African American studies at the University of Virginia, told me that even small financial incentives can have the effect of turning relatives against one another, and developers exploit these divisions. You need to have some willing participation from Black families driven by the desire to profit off their land holdings, Kroll said. But it does boil down to greed and abuse of power, and the way in which Americans' history of racial inequality can be used to the advantage of developers. As the Reals family grew over time, the threat of partition sale mounted. If one heir does sale, the whole property would likely go to auction at the price that none of them could pay. When courts originally gained the authority to order a partition sale around the time of the Civil War, the Wisconsin Supreme Court called in an extraordinary and dangerous power. So let me take a sip of my water, y'all. So you notice when they started this fuck shit about partitioning and selling off the land. It was after the Civil War. So the Civil War was about what? You gonna try to convince me it was about motherfucking slavery? Or was it about land?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sorry, Brother Sean, go ahead.
The way I'm looking at it is a trust before the corporation was just that. It wasn't a piece of paper. It was a living, generational.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
It's a contract with Mama Earth. She trusts you to take care of her and her children. And you will always have land to live on.
That's right.
But then they came along with their little legal ease and this, that, or the other, giving dirty motherfuckers a way to be able to do some shit.
Exactly.
Because back in the day, if you tried to go against what the family said, your ass was ostracized. You got
sure was. First of all, you got
the fuck up.
Beat down. First, you got the fucking beat down. So you gonna tell me you gonna go against what the fuck Big Mama say? Nah, we finna fuck you up and you out of here.
Mm-hmm. You had no recourse for your ignorance.
Exactly.
Now these motherfuckers come and give you recourse for your ignorance, and this is why our people stab each other in the back all the motherfucking time. Running the court trying to take this. As soon as somebody die, you got motherfuckers fighting and trying to take shit. Who getting the money? Who getting this? A motherfucker ain't dead. 15
ain't
minutes.
Work for nary
house, going through the drawers and going through clothes, looking for money, looking for the paperwork, everything.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it shows you how far we have fallen when Big Mama even got to leave some paperwork for you niggas. Because that's what you acting like. Big Mama's word should stand on what the fuck she said, what her and Papa said. And you fucking wrong. And then you wonder why you turn around and your shit is fucked up. For generations upon generations upon generations upon generations. Because you don't honor anything. You turn around and complain about the white man's system, but yet you run and use it against your own family and going against natural law. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Sean.
Yeah, I mean, we were trusted to do the right thing. I mean, we could look at it like this. For generations, when the ancestors passed, they were buried in that very earth that we lived on.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So that means that the food was still being nurtured by Big Mama now.
That's
but
right.
Then you turn around and you let these orc beans come on your land and they being buried in the land. Don't you think whatever the fuck they made out of is going into the food and fucking us up? They don't belong here. They shouldn't be buried in the hallowed earth. That means anywhere on this fucking planet. Their corpses should be thrown in a fucking volcano or something. They shouldn't be put in the earth. They shouldn't be put in Mama. They didn't come out of Mama. So what the fuck we sticking them in Mama for? But I digress.
Wow. Okay, so, but it boils down to greed and abuse of power and the way in which Americans' history of racial inequality can be used to the advantage of developers. Let me make sure. As the Rios family grew over time, the threat of a partition sale mounted. I think I read all of it. I'm trying to get to it. Sorry, y'all. When courts originally gained the authority to order a partition sale around the time of the Civil War, the The Wisconsin Supreme Court called it an extraordinary and dangerous power that should be used sparingly. In the past several decades, many courts have favored such sales, arguing that the value of a property in its entirety is greater than the value of it in pieces. But the sales are often speedy and poorly advertised and tend to fetch below market prices. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is for people that you calling yourself being nickel-ass slick, developers, whoever the fuck you are, speculators, buying that land. And people that are buying and those multi-million-dollar or $500,000 homes on that shoreline, none of you motherfuckers will rest. And so don't be sitting up there whining, I want to see your bitch ass on CNN, Fox, ABC, none of that goddamn shit. Local news, when that shit is flooding and sinking. Don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm.
You got to include motherfuckers that's flipping houses, too, and I don't care what color you is. You getting them houses
Agreed.
because of this goddamn taxation and this whole fucked up system. That's the only way you getting people's houses.
Yep.
You gonna pay for that shit.
I totally agree.
You thinking about being successful in their system. You're not honoring mama.
Right. 1,000% agree.
And enjoy it while you can, because the party's over.
Exactly. So those of you that, you want to know why those areas are flooding, just keep getting motherfucking prepared, because it's going to continue, because you're not supposed to be there. Right. On the coast of North Carolina, I met Billy Freeman, who grew up working in the parking lot of his uncle's beachside dance hall, Monte Carlo by the sea. His family, which once owned thousands of acres, ran the largest black beach in the state, with juke joints and crab shacks, an amusement park, and a 3-story hotel. But over the decades, developers acquired interest from their heirs, and in 2008, one firm petitioned the court for a sale of the whole property. Now, what happened in 2008 in the Americas?
That housing crash, that whole HUD fiasco.
Exactly. And when that shit was going down, it hit me. Oh, these bitches are doing land transfer. Oh, okay. Do not think.
What?
Go ahead, sis.
Well, they target us. They target us. They know that give us these high interest rates, and then they target us with that, what you call that stuff? A variable interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
And, and a lot of us don't think that just because you're doing good right now, that you're not going to be doing good later. And they wouldn't even do business with me when I wouldn't take a 4% variable. And I said, I'm not going to do that. Does that mean I have to requalify? She said yes. And I said, well, I'm not doing it. And she hung up on me. So it was for my home. So that's how they do it, because they make us so poor. And I'm going to bring in this immigration stuff. They bring people in here to do the jobs and we can't get any. Now, if you don't go to a higher educational level, you really don't have prayer at a job entry level, a school entry level job. So because they go with their bottom line, and that's cutting costs, and you're going to be toast. And that house that you got a variable for is going to go up and up and up and up and up. And that's why, and I hate to say it, I see our people on the streets. These people look like they're educated, mannered people, but they got thrown out because they have no place to stay. Because if you don't have
especially in Cali.
Especially in Cali.
Oh my God, it's off the hook in Cali.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It hurts my heart, but you can't offer them to come into your home because you don't know them.
Right.
So it's really a bad situation going worse with our people, and you need to stop getting out there and trumping against Trump, because the man is doing his job, destroying his own people, and just let him do it. That's what he's here for. They bickering like they crazy. He said the same way they got this place, the same way they're going to keep it. And now they're charging against other countries to fight them because they make money at war. And our people are going there and signing up. Please, home. Understand all a game. They've been doing this for centuries to divide and conquer. Right.
And, so, I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
No, go ahead. You take over because I keep going.
No, you good. And I'm going to say, and I'm going to say again, I hope that you have enjoyed corporate America. I hope those that know that you're sitting on stolen land. I hope that the developers, you have motherfucking enjoyed your fiat, because the gig is up. So none of those illegal statutes and codes are going to be standing as mother keep shaking and that UV radiation keep tagging you in your motherfucking ass. She is going to show you who owns what. So I'm going to tell you again. Hope you enjoy the motherfucking coastlines, because you ain't going to be able to enjoy it long. And the sad part about it, those that are in the upper crust of those secret societies, they enter and understand the connection of the people and the land. And they know by removing the indigenous people out of certain areas, they know that makes climate, environmental changes. They already know. So I'm going to say again, hope you developers enjoy it, because you may not be living on that coast, but you damn sure going to suffer the consequences. Those that are living on those coastlines and those other areas, I hope you motherfucking enjoying it. Because if the floods won't get that ass, if the shaking won't get that ass, the sun definitely gonna get that ass. And melanated people, as long as you stay disconnected from the land, you will continue to be lost. All right, so here we go. All right, so this is Billy Freeman, who grew up working in the parking lot of his uncle's beachside dance hall, Monte Carlo by the sea. And I see you, 646. I promise I'm coming to you, sweetheart. And ran the largest black beach in the state. Let's see, they had, but over the decades, developer acquired interest from other heirs. And in 2008, one firm petitioned the court for a sale of the whole property. Freeman attempted to fight the partition for years, I didn't want to lose the land, but I felt like everybody else had sold, he told me. In 2016, the beach, which covered 170 acres, was sold to the development firm for $1.4 million. That just fucking blows my mind. Y'all gonna sit y'all dizzy motherfucking stinking asses up and sell 170 acres of beachfront on neighboring beaches. That sum could buy a tiny fraction of a parcel so large. Freeman got $30,000. So that means out of all them niggas, you got $30 motherfucking $1,000. Fucking disgusting. The lost property isn't just money, it's also identity. In one case that I examined, the mining company PCS Phosphorate forced the sale of a 40-acre plot which contained a family cemetery, against the wishes of several heirs. Brother Sean said that family members are buried there whose ancestors had been enslaved on the property. I don't believe all that, but anyhow, a spokesperson for the company told me that it is a law-abiding corporate citizen. Oh, okay then. Some speculators use questionable tactics to acquire property. When Jessica Wiggins' uncle called her to say that a man was trying to buy his interest in their family's land, she didn't believe him. He had dementia. Then in 2015, she learned that a company called Aldonia Farms had purchased the interest of 4 heirs, including her uncle, and had filed a petition action. What got me was he had no knowledge of this person, Wiggins told me, of the man who ran Aldonia. Jonathan S. Phillips, who now runs Aldonia Farms, told me that he wasn't there at the time of the purchase and that he's confident no one would have taken advantage of the uncle's dementia. Wiggins was devastated. The 18 acres of wood and farmland that held her great-grandmother's house was the place that she had felt safest as a child. The remaining heirs still owned 61% of the property, but there was little that they could do to prevent a sale. When I visited the land with the Wiggins, her great-grandmother's house had been cleared, and Aldonia Farm had erected a gate, Phillips told me. Our intention was not to keep them out, but to be good stewards of the property and keep it from being littered on and vandalized. Last fall, Wiggins and her relatives gathered for the auction of the property on the courthouse steps in the town of Windsor. Notice that name, Windsor. Motherfuckers. A bronze statue of a Confederate soldier stood behind them. Wiggins' cousin, Donita Pugh, walked up to Aldonia Farms' lawyer and pulled her deed out of an envelope. You're telling me that you're going to auction it off after showing you a deed, she said. I'm going to come out and say it. The white man takes the land from the black. Hundreds of partition actions are filed in North Carolina every year. Carteret County, which has a population of about 70,000, has one of the highest per capita rates in the state. I read through every Carteret partition case concerning heir property from the past decade and found that 42% of the cases involve black families, despite the fact that only 6% of Carteret's population is black. Heirs not only regularly lose their land, they are also required to pay the legal fees of those who bring the partition cases. In 2008, Janice Dyer, a research associate at Auburn University, published a study of these actions in Macon County, Alabama. She told me that the lack of secure ownership locks black families out of the wealth in their property. The Southeast has these amazing natural resources, timber, land, great fishing, she said. If somebody could snap their fingers and clear up all those titles, how much richer will the region be? And so in the article, they show along the coastline, like I was telling y'all, these multi-million-dollar houses that they're putting up. Thomas M. Mitchell, a property law professor at Texas A&M University School of Law, has drafted legislation aimed at reforming this system, which has now passed in 14 states. He told me that heir property owners, particularly those who are African American, tend to be land rich and cash poor. Now, ain't that a bitch? What's more valuable, the land or the cash? The land is always going to be more valuable. Okay, making it difficult for them to keep the land in a sale. Okay, so you have to buy back your own shit with something fake and is of no value. And folk think that we are going to uphold and protect this unnatural system. Get the fuck out of here. This system, I'm going to tell you and tell you again, I don't give a fuck who says it, who claimed, who wrote it. It's unnatural. It's against nature, and it will never stand. All right. They don't have the resources to make competitive bids, and they can't even use their heir property as collateral to get a loan to participate in the bidding more effectively, he said. His law, the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, gives family members the first option to buy, sends most sales to the open market, and mandates that in their decision to order sales, weigh non-economic factors such as the consequences of eviction and whether the property has historic value. North Carolina is one of the 8 states in the South that has held out against these reforms. The state has also repealed the Torrance Act. It is one of the fewer than a dozen states where the law is still on the books. Last year, Congress passed the Agricultural Improvement Act, which, among other things, allowed heirs, property owners, to apply for Department of Agriculture programs using non-traditional paperwork, such as a written agreement between heirs. The alternative documentation is really, really important as its precedent. Loretta Pisano, the executive director of Rural Coalition, a group that advocated for the reform, told me, the next thing we need to do is make sure this happens with FEMA and flood insurance and housing programs. The bill also includes a lending program for heirs, property owners, which will make it easier for them to clear titles and develop succession plans. But no federal funding has been allocated for these loans. Of course they haven't. The first time I met Melvin and LaCurtis in the Carteret jail, Melvin filled the entire frame of the visiting room window. He is a forceful presence and prone to exaggeration. His hair neatly combed was streaked with silver. He didn't blink as he spoke. LaCurtis had been given a diagnosis of diabetes and leaned against a stool for support. He still acted like a young brother, never interrupting Melvin or challenging his memory. He told me that at night he dreamed of the shore, of storms blowing through his house, the water rising, LaCurtis said, and I could do nothing about it. He was worried about his mother. If they took this land from my mama at her age, and she's been farming it all her life, you know that it will kill her, he told me. The brothers were seen as local heroes for resisting the court order. They want to break your spirit. Their niece, Kim Durhorn, wrote to them. God had you both picked out for this. Even strangers wrote. When I was a kid, it used to sadden me that white folks had Radio Island, Atlantic Beach, Seagate, and other places to swim, but we didn't. One letter from a local woman read. She wrote that when she was taken to Silver Dollar Road, I remember seeing nothing but my own kind, black folk. In North Carolina, civil contempt is most commonly used to force defendants to pay child support. When the rulings require a defendant to pay money other than child support, a new hearing is held every 90 days. After the first 90 days had passed, Melvin asked a friend in jail to write a letter on his behalf. Melvin couldn't read and he needed help writing. I spent 91 days on a 90-day sentence, and I don't understand why, the letter read. Please explain this to me so I can go home and back to work. Sincerely, Melvin Davis. The brothers learned that although Billy Dean Brown's lawyer had asked for 90 days, the court had decided that there would be no time restriction on their case and that they could be jailed until they presented evidence that they had removed their homes. They continued to hold out. Brown wasn't demolishing their buildings while they were incarcerated, and so they believed they still had a shot at convincing the court that the land was theirs. That fall, Brown told the Charlotte Observer, I made up my mind I will die and burn in hell before I walk away from this thing. When I reached Brown's recently, he told me that he was in an impossible position. We had several offers from buyers, but once they learned of the situation, they withdrew, he said. 3 months turned into 6 months, and a year turned into several. Jail began to take a toll on the brothers. The facility was designed for short stays with no time outside and nowhere to exercise. They couldn't be transferred to a prison because they hadn't been convicted of a crime. Early on, Melvin mediated fights between inmates and persuaded them to sneak in hair ties for him. But over time, he stopped taking care of his appearance and became withdrawn. He ranted about the stolen land, though he couldn't quite nail down who the enemy was, Shade or Wheatley or Brown, the sheriff or the court or the county. The brothers slept head to head in neighboring beds. Melvin would say crazy things, LaCurtis told me. Lay on down and go to sleep, wake up, and say the same thing again. It wore me down. Melvin is proud and guarded, but he told me that the case had broken him. I'm not ashamed to own it, he said. This has messed my mind up. Without the brothers, Silver Dollar Road lost its pulse. Mamie kept her blinds down. She couldn't stand to see the deserted waterfront. At night, she studied her brother's case, thumbing through the court files and printing out the definition of words that she didn't understand, like rescind and contempt. She filled a binder with relatives' obituaries so that once her brothers got out, they would have a record of who had passed away. When Claude Wheatley's father died, she added his obituary. I kept him for history, she told me. Gertrude didn't have the spirit to farm. Most days she sat in a tangerine armchair by her window, cracking peanuts or watching the shore like a guard. This winter, we looked out in silence as Brown's caretaker drove through the property. Melvin and LaCurtis wouldn't allow Gertrude to visit them in jail. LaCurtis said that it hurt so bad to see her leave. One member of the family, Melvin and LaCurtis' brother, Billy, their nephew, Roderick, and their cousin, Sean, kept trying to shrimp, but the river suddenly seemed barren. It might sound crazy, but it was like the good Lord put a curse on this little creek where ain't nobody gonna catch no shrimp until they're released, Roderick told me. Billy added, it didn't feel right no more with Melvin and them not there because we all looked out for one another. Some mornings you didn't even want to go. Sheriff deputies came to the property a few times a week, and they wouldn't allow the men to dock their boats on the pier. One by one, the men lost hope and sold their trawlers. Sean took a job at Best Buy, cleaning the store for $11.50 an hour, and eventually moved to Newport, 30 miles southwest, where it was easier to make rent. Billy got paid to fix roofs, but soon defaulted on the mortgage for his house on Silver Dollar Road. One day you good, and the next you can't believe it, he told me. Roderick kept being charged with trespassing for walking on the waterfront, and he was racking up thousands of dollars in legal fees. He recently renovated his boat, putting in an aluminum gas tank, large spotlights, and West Marine speakers. But without a place to dock, he saw no way to hold on to it. He found work cutting grass and posted his boat on Craigslist. A white man responded. They met at the shore, and the man paid. Roderick began to cry. He walked up Silver Dollar Road with his back to the river. He told me, I just didn't want to see my boat leave. The Rios brothers were locked in a hopeless clash with the law. One judge who heard their case likened them to the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, who attempted to guard his forest against King Arthur. Even after King Arthur had cut off both of the Black Knight's arms and legs, he still insisted that he will continue to fight and that no one may pass. Although he cannot do anything, the judge wrote in an appeals court dissent. In February, nearly 8 years after Melvin and LaCurtis went to jail, they stood before a judge in Cataract to request their release. They were now 72 and 61, but they remained defiant. LaCurtis said that he would go back on the property just as soon as I walk out of here, Melvin said. I believe the land is mine. They hired a new lawyer who argued that it would cost almost $50,000 to tear down the brothers' home. Melvin had less than $4,000 in the bank. LaCurtis had nothing. The judge announced that he was releasing them. He warned them, however, if they returned to their homes, they'd be right back in jail, he told them. The jailhouse keys are in your pocket. An hour later, the brothers emerged from the sheriff's department. Melvin surveyed the parking lot, which was crowded with friends and relatives. About time, he said, laughing and exchanging hugs. You stuck with me. When he spotted little Melvin, who was now 39, he extended his arm for a handshake. Little Melvin pulled it closer and buried his face in his father's shoulders, sobbing. When LaCurtis came out, he folded over as if the breath had been pulled out of him. Mamie wrapped her arms around his neck, led him to her car, and drove him home. When they reached Silver Dollar Road, she honked the horn all the way down the street. Back on Silver Dollar Road, LaCurtis said, pines flickering by his window. Melvin spent his first afternoon shopping for silk shirt and brown leather shoes and a cell phone that talked to him. Old acquaintances stopped him, a man who thanked him for his advice about hauling dirt, a DJ who used to spin at Fantasy Island. While in jail, Melvin had been keeping up with his girlfriends, and 11 women called looking for him. Melvin told me that he held on for his family and for himself too, but away from the others, his weariness showed. He acknowledged that he was worried about what would happen, his voice almost a whisper. They can't keep on doing this. There's got to be an ending somewhere, he said. A few days later, Gertrude threw her sons a party and generations of relatives came. The family squeezed together on her armchair, eating chili and biscuits and lemon pie. Mamie gave a speech. We got to get this water back, she said, stretching her arms wide. We got to unite. A chain's only as strong as the links in it. The room answered, that's right. The brothers who were staying with their mother kept saying, once we get this land stuff sorted out, relatives who had left talked about coming back, buying boats and go-karts for their kids. It was less a plan than a fantasy, an illusion that their sense of justice could overturn the decision of the laws. The brothers hadn't stepped onto the waterfront since they'd been back. The track was 100 feet away, but out of reach. Fantasy Island was a shell, the plot around it overgrown. Still, Melvin seemed convinced that he would restore it. Put me some palm trees in the sand and build me some picnic tables, he said. After the party wound down, I sat with LaCurtis on his mother's porch as he gazed at his house, which was moldy and gutted, its frame just visible in the purple dust. He reminisced about the house's wood-burning heater, the radio that he always left playing. He said that he planned to build a second story and raise the house to protect it from floods. He wanted a wraparound deck and big windows. I'll pour them walls solid all the way around, he said. Will bloom again, ain't gonna be long. Okay, so again, this article is off of a site called ProPublica, ProPublica. The article's name is, bear with me because I got to scroll all the way back up, y'all, because that was long. Their family bought land one generation after slavery. The Reels brothers spent 8 years in jail for refusing to leave it. So it's the Reels, Reels. So I'll yield, Brother Sean. I'm going to get, and Sis Sandra, I'm going to get 646 they've been holding patiently, and then we'll come back and put something on it. Okay, so 646, I'm coming to you. 646, your line is open.
Thank you so much. Greetings to you, my beautiful sister, Rhonda.
Greetings. Greetings.
Greetings to the panel, the co-hosts, and the family. I tell you, that was really tight and touching, and very illustrative of two things. One, the quote-unquote war on economics, and two, Malcolm X's speech about human rights. And, you know, tying all that together just to say that when you talk about a national versus what they've been through and then what this article points out, you'll realize that there was higher levels that they couldn't reach. But meanwhile, I look at that article as a problem, and all my life it's been problem solution. No such thing as a problem without a solution. And one thing for certain is that if we want to call somebody Big Mama, and we got, it just immediately flashed the Empress in my mind, and right. I'm not sure what's in her last book. I haven't been able to get my hands on it yet, but I am certain that the research into her case that she won before the Supreme Court for that whole Louisiana territory, I'm sure that serves as a model of the burning of the candle from this end, while Mother Earth burns her candle from that end, and
from the
all that mess in the middle going to be disappeared. But I just know that it takes, it takes us to be students of these things so that we can live the way that we're supposed to live. Because, wow, That was amazing. And to find that somebody spending so many years in jail without, I mean, it's impossible to get a conviction if you ain't in the rail court in the first place.
True.
And all the manners in which they were imposing extraordinary things to take land. I mean, I've heard a woman testify from Texas a long time ago how these folks didn't have nothing, and they used to come and eat at our house. You know, They used to, in other words, and I heard other testimonies about how all of a sudden some foreigners come and build what they call a courthouse, and we're supposed to now be governed by it. So, all that is just part of a problem that just hasn't been addressed properly yet. But as I say, one great model would be a real study into the Empress's, Big Mama's case, what she won, how she won it, and so forth. It also ties into that whole truth about what that settlement for the farmers was about.
Right.
And so it's just so much. It just moved me so much to hear that.
I know.
That was fantastic. And I just look forward to the chance where I can even start getting more Empress's case, as well as get my hands on the book to see if anything is tampered with. I'm a reader, so I will just sense what's wrong if there's something wrong with the book.
Right.
Because there was no way she was supposed to go out the way she did, but I'm sure she went out honorably in terms of herself for what she left that legacy. And it's up to those of us who see and know. It's up to us to pick up the torch now. But I do thank you especially so much for what you delivered. Keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you, brother. Indeed. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Oh, boy. Okay, just had to get myself together. To the real family, REELS, just sending out love and higher vibrations to your family and to all of the indigenous melanated people across the Americas that have been in similar situations. The same to you. And, you just keep putting it out there that the land will be returned to you, and hold on the love and the respect for the land and the love and respect for your ancestors, and honor your ancestors' wishes, because it runs deeper than them leaving the land to the family members to have a place to live and for wealth. It's really that spiritual connection. And that's what we have to get back to in our family bloodline. And all of the rest of the stuff, it's going to be corrected, because you have the laws of nature, which is more powerful than any man-made law on your side. So just shout out to your family, all the love and respect, and all of the families in that situation. And, to the families in the South, because I find that most people in the South, they know exactly where their family had land and has land. This isn't, their situation isn't just an isolated situation, and it will be returned to you. And this is an opportunity. That's why I keep saying for us to sweep around your own doorstep. We have to clean up our family bloodline. And we have to call people on their shit who share our same bloodline, who want to disrespect the ancestors and disrespect the land. It cannot and should not be tolerated. So I'll yield in case Sis or Brother Sean, you all want to put something on it.
Well, I like to say, that I live in a city where they're about to build a casino. And I want to tell you, the developers are calling. And they're calling. And they're calling. And they're calling. Even the mortgage company is calling. They want the property. So this is their tactic. And it's been their tactic forever.
Right.
Like when I used to live in Venice, they redlined my mother, and they put us on the west side.
And girl, you can't buy nothing in Venice now under $1 million. And I remember when it didn't used to be like that.
Exactly. But they put us on the west side, and they got the bigger homes on the east side. And the property on the west side, you couldn't touch it because it was closer to the water. So now they wait until the people get ready to die, and they go in there and take it and all that kind of stuff. But we have a golden age coming, and that's the start of the age of Aquarius. And all this stuff is going to be over because it's no longer in their power, because the universe, I'm not going to let them do it, to take and because, like you said, it's going to be returned to the rightful owners. But they've been doing this. They're still doing it, and I don't really blame them. You see a dollar you can make, they're going to go for it. So it's just that they don't have the decency to understand that everything you see you can't have. So,
and they're not in tune, because if you're in tune, you would enter and understand how just by any common decency that you would think gaining something like that it's okay and that all is going to be well. That just shows how out of tune you are. And quite frankly, you don't belong to be here. You just don't.
Well, like I said, you always have to remember the definition of the devil they got in the Bible. He came to kill, steal, and destroy. So who are these people? Killing, stealing, and destroying? So, and our people got sucked into that stuff, and that's what's keeping them down, because, when I do things that are legal papers and stuff, I go to sleep and I wake up with the answer, because I get the answer to how to destroy what they're trying to do. And they think, got it this time. But you got to listen to that spiritual angel voice. I heard a lady on TV say it's an angel voice. And that's what it is. It directs you. But if you're not at that frequency, you're not going to hear it.
Absolutely. Indeed. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
No, that's what we need to do. We need to pay attention to our ancestors or the angels talking to us. And they'll solve your problem. You just don't have to fret about it. It's going to be solved, because our age is coming and is here.
Absolutely. It's here. Absolutely. Shout out to Purple Pill in the chat room. All of a sudden now I can't even communicate with you in the chat room. So it is what it is. It's just, yes, devil equals adversary. Absolutely. This is Purple Pill in the chat room. If one pays property taxes, then obviously it's not yours. Absolutely purple pill, because they tied everything up via legal ease. And actually all of the America's land, they have put it in a trust. but most people don't know that. That's why they're making people pay property taxes. But that's yet another story. You have to go do the research on your own. But all of that's going to be being torn down. Let me go to 832. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sid.
When you have them register your deed and trust, your trust deed, that's exactly when they take it. Because instead of you going and register it, they go and register it, and then they become the owner. So you have to take control of all the papers you sign and don't let them register nothing. Or if you do, you need to take back the warranty deed and say you are an alive person and that you are an adult and they cannot have your property. You're the owner of the trust. And watch them turn blue in the face.
Right.
Because
and, I'm sorry. No. Just, again, this is going out to the people with the ancestral land passed down from generation to generation. You're going to have to pull the family members together, make sure all of your paperwork is in order. Do not use a will, put it in trust, and just let that be that, where nobody can sell the land, point blank and period. So if you haven't done that, get it in order now, because you don't even want it to be the case where, somebody is married and they getting a divorce and, they old lady or old man want to sell a piece of the motherfucking land and this, that, and the third. So, while you're in this Romanesque system, you need to bring the family together and put everybody on notice that this is the way it needs to be. Point blank and period. And especially if Big Mama is still living, Big Mama or, Papa, that needs to be done, especially while they are living, and just let that be that. So here we go. 832, your line is open.
Rhonda, Sandra, my sisters from other misters.
Hey, brother.
Feathers
up.
Invaders crossing the border down. Son, my brother from another mother sitting on Mount Olympus, throwing them black lightning bolts down tonight. My sisters, context of my conversation tonight, silence is consent.
Yep.
Listening and heartbroken reflection of your stating with that article, I'm surprised with y'all's report on fuckery that and I understand you don't have to go into Trump, but the nonsense out of the mouth of Kellyanne Conway asking their reporter what his ethnicity was. And I want to point out something for you to think about, the shrewdness of the evil nature of the serpent. Because, see, what they're doing now, they're going to use this technology, as Malcolm used to describe, to raise ethnicity as a cover of protection for Trump to no longer be charged allegedly a racist. You see the trickery in saying that it's ethnic. She goes and with her, strutting her Caucasoid behind out, stating or pronouncing that she's Irish and Italian. What does that mean? On the one hand, notice recently, you hadn't been hearing as much of things being reported as white until recently, have you? Even during the era of Obama, you didn't really hear people reporting white this and white that. Ever since Trump came down that damn escalator in 2015.
You mean
just white.
What they predicted in The Simpsons decade or so before it happened in the Simpsons cartoon? Oh, okay then. That's what I thought you was talking about. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Now, what you just described is referred to as predictive programming.
Exactly.
Now, this woman gonna ask a guy whose obvious surname supposedly is Jewish what his ethnicity is, pretending like she didn't know before she asked. But who's a Jew, and how do you know they're a Jew until they announce themselves? That's just like saying who's a homosexual or a lesbian.
Right.
Until they announce themselves. But then they all pull this blanket called minority, riding our coattail, suffering not one iota of the abuse and the scorns of outrageous derision that we have suffered for centuries. But yet still they want to mosey on up to us and sidle among our brothers and sisters in suffering. You know, I may have been born at night. I was not born last night. It is amazing to me how we continue to allow and tolerate this distorted narrative that is perpetuating the fraud of these people having anything in common with us. And I know I'm repeating myself, rambling a bit here, but to me, simplest thing, our situation is an issue of identity theft. Now we have to go and actually describe, like you keep saying, I just clean up the bloodline, as you've already referred to tonight. Identify who you are, decide what that is. That is for you, not for who gonna tell you who you are. Well, we know we haven't done that way for 500 years now.
Exactly.
But we're gonna allow the oppressor to dictate, determine. What's the difference in being called a Negro or an African American? One was done from without, the other was done from within. Is there any difference of Jesse Jackson declaring us to be called something as opposed to European colonizers who came over here? And by the way, the descriptor of Negro was being done on the Aborigines here and the so-called land of Africa.
Right.
So the only thing they had in common, they did not look like the Europeans that called them Negroes.
Right.
And we're still not addressing and dealing with that. We are being dictated to by people who have invaded our space. Now, as that brother said, they went and built what? Courthouses? Based on what authority?
Right. Right.
You got a chance to look into white trash until 400 years.
I got the book. I actually have the book. Yeah.
You know what a squatter is.
Yeah, I'm getting through that now, and I'm just, I mean, what can you say? It's like, wow.
Well, it's self-evident, actually. I mean, it speaks for itself, although we ignore what is stated.
Exactly.
A tenant is responsible to a landlord.
That's right.
Who is the lord of the land?
The crown,
Who
the Vatican.
Who is the lord of the land? When all these issues that come to a head, now this woman is standing up there, and by the way, she's the White House counselor, attorney at law, meaning she's registered with the bar, right? Meaning she is a foreign agent. Is that
right?
Of
the crown. Yes, it is. Yep.
So who is she serving? Who is she in service to? The British. I don't know what the acronym stands for. Probably if Sandra or whatever can Google it. But the British something registry, the British attorney or barrister, attorney registry, whatever. The fact is, it's British. and all people who swear before the bar swear allegiance to the British Empire.
Right.
Under the Constitution, that is treason. So every attorney, elected official, called Esquire, has a title of nobility. That's on the Constitution, is it not?
That's
yes,
right.
it is.
But you know, they did not lose the war to Britain like they say they did.
British accredited registry. Thank you, Purple Peel. That's what the bar means. British accredited registry. And Purple Peel said register means to give away.
Right. They
I'm sorry,
didn't
go
lose
ahead,
the war to the Brits, though. The Brits won the war. They pretend like they lost it. This country pretends like they lost the war. So this country has always belonged to the crown when they took it from us.
Right.
And they're just making a show of democracy. It's like my nephew said, demonocracy. But they're making a show of it, 832, because they are officers of the crown, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then on top of that, subject.
Yeah.
Subject.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Now, and I agree with everything you said, Rhonda. All right, put it in trust. Entrusted to whom, by the way? In whatever scripture, holy book, or supposed, references of tomes, this Mother Earth, this Garden of Eden, has been entrusted to whom?
To her children, the indigenous.
Now, I would agree with you about establishing these legal constructs. That's what you're talking about now. You're talking about trust as a legal construct. But then, upheld by whom? Now, I'm being slightly facetious. You're dealing with criminals.
True that.
That are wearing robes, calling themselves magistrates, judges, counselors, barristers, attorneys, and as he just pointed out, British accredited, registered individuals to a foreign government, wearing titles of nobility, which is unconstitutional. How many different ways do I need to describe? They are unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional, and criminal.
Indeed.
So having said all that, and I appreciate what that brother was 646 said. I mean, the Empress, Vera Diassi, Gostin Turner Elbay, where is that litigation, that argument, that legal representation where the Washita de Doug de Moundia, as you referenced last week, the mountain people of the Ohio Valley, was dictated, adjudicated, sued, made reference to by these Caucasoid European invading, colonizing demons to be the most ancient people on, and it's registered in the United Nations, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken. It is registered in the United Nations, and it is the precursor to the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People, right, Sandra? Where are our barristers? Where are our attorneys? Where are our lawyers lining out in response to your declaration, Rhonda, of cleaning up around our front door, of addressing generational curses, about straightening out your bloodline, and about attachment to the land? Where are our legal jurisprudence being documented and laid bare? Because the template's already there. The Empress has already laid it out. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights states very emphatically, you may want to Google that, pull it up, that only you can declare your own humanity. No one can prevent you from claiming a nationality, nor can they prevent you from changing one's nationality. But what is the nationality anyway? What is that?
It's a corporate
When this
fiction.
woman gets on our dime on the White House garden, breaking the Hatch Act, I'm sure you may have heard some of this in passing, though. She has been politically stumping almost from day one for over 3 years, which is a violation of the Hatch Act. Did you hear the EEOC said the President of the United States calling people out of their name was a violation of the law? Did you hear that today?
No, I didn't, but nothing surprised me.
Basically, in the context, now just think about this for a second. Basically, in the context of the workforce, he is a federal employee, is he not? I know he doesn't think that.
Yes, he is.
He does work for us, right?
Yep, he's a federal
The
employee.
Squad, those 4 congresswomen, they are federal employees. They work for us, right?
Yeah, well, those that are
we're
to the corporation,
stuff.
but yeah.
We're talking
Yeah.
As the EEOC pronounced, I notice it's very interesting how these people, all these entities and all these agencies that fall under his so-called purview and authority as the executive branch are declaring what is illegal in the number one federal employee's behavior on display worldwide.
Yep.
That it is illegal to call someone out of their name. It is illegal, not only insulting and offensive in a hostile workplace. You see? Which we already know. He could give a shit. You know, we already understand. He is no, a respect. Well, what was the scripture about? There is no respecter of persons.
Right.
God is not a respecter of persons. So since he shows and displays no respect for persons, then that must mean in an equation that he must be God, right? But you see, I know you see the points that I'm laying out here. How
Absolutely.
their behavior is in full display. They are criminal. They are outlaws. They exhibit illegal behavior. And we are to then document it and file lawsuits in an unfortunate setting. And I'll wrap this up with the Epstein nonsense. You see, you know how this is going to be played out, right? Let me show you 3 examples in parting. Epstein, who had, a slap on the wrist. Remember Mayberry RFD and Otis, the drunk that locked himself up in the jail? Epstein was able to leave prison. He was able, under his 15 months, reduced to 13 months, to leave prison at the day hours and be back from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. Can you tell me who's ever been in jail on that rotation?
Right. So was kicking it, basically. Just went back to jail to eat, wash his ass, and go to sleep.
And prevented from having federal charges placed upon him for sex trafficking. Okay. Guess who they now is pulling his penis in the dirt? Had a jump squad from NYC with DHS go grab his ass in Chicago and bring him for federal charges. So you know who's going to be on display when his trial, R. Kelly, wide ass open. You think you're going to hear? You're going to hear another thing about Epstein?
No, that's a diversion.
Harvey Weinstein. Remember the game? Where's Waldo? Where the fuck is Harvey? Wasn't the trial supposed to start in May?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When them white women went and hollered about Me Too and Time's Up,
right.
who did they
He
go
had a
and put
bunch of
in
charges
jail?
up against him, allegedly and supposedly.
But who all of a sudden they found 50, 60 so-called drug white women on Mr. Pudding Pops at 80-some years old is now behind bars, right?
Right.
Poster boy for drugging and violating white women. And finally, 300 pedophile priests in one state, Rhonda. One state alone, Pennsylvania. Have you heard another state filing any charges since? Even brought up an investigation? These 300 pedophile priests who they have over 1,000 claims on record. You know how many men that is? They're probably adults with children, grandchildren. You know how hard it probably is for a grown man to come forward 1,000
right.
plus have already
Right.
stated over decades they've been. Has a single one of those pedophile priests been charged? Guess what they did? They dug up Michael Jackson.
Yeah, they did.
Are you feeling me, my sister?
Mm-hmm.
This is the shit they do. It is who they are. And I don't care who you are. If you call yourself white or you claim to be Caucasian, if you don't stand up, you ain't got to do a damn thing for me. I'm not asking you to do a thing for me. You ain't got to prove nothing to me.
Right.
You ain't got to say nothing to me. But if you're in silence, you are what?
Accepting.
Consent.
That's right.
And I yield.
All right, Brother 832. Thank you much. Peace and love. I just wanted to point out, and Purple Pill dropping a lot of nice stuff in the chat, that whole Negro and African American 832 brought that up, and I just saw, and I had heard this before, and we had took and told y'all, as Big Mama and them had said, that they were going to start taking off their classifications off that birth certificate. So now the motherfuckers are taking Negro off the birth certificate. And supposedly they're trying to go back and take them off the birth certificates. And supposedly the new ones being issued, some of the states aren't even putting nationality on there. Because remember, if you have Negro on those birth certificates, then we know when Negro was changed from Indian, indigenous, so which that ties you to the land, okay? So all of these fuck games, playing with identity and all of that to keep inhabiting land that does not belong to them. And so Purple Pill says nationality is the method in which Africa and America were carved up. I 1,000% agree with you. And so he also says Takafi, T-H.
Well, you know what? You're saying stuff and you're kind of breaking up, so I didn't even hear what you said. Huh?
Of course. I said, of course I am. Of course.
They want you to break up. Mm-hmm.
Of course. So I'll log in on my phone as a backup. I don't have my headset, this phone. But just basically, they're trying to strip the Negro off of the birth certificates is what I'm saying. And they're even going back trying to do them. And some of the babies born today don't have that on their birth certificate. So parents, you make sure that your babies have copies of your birth certificate. Because if you are of a certain age, Negro is damn show on your birth certificate. I know that for a fact. So the other thing is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
I'm just thinking with them doing all that type of stuff, what that's actually doing is forcing people to go within. We don't need none of their goddamn paperwork to verify a goddamn thing.
No, you don't.
Take the paperwork. We stuck in it. We're still supporting the system. The whole thing is the system has to leave. As long as we keep on putting in paperwork and doing this, that, or the other, figuring we have to do this, that, or the other, that's what a fuckery is. Because that's where they got us with the fuckery at to begin with, to get us to start coming to them, filing paperwork with them, trying to prove that it's our shit. That's putting us in their system. Thing is, the whole system got to go taught them their systems. When people
Right.
go within and get back in tune with Mama, you will know where you're supposed to be here, naturally.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
all their paperwork got to go, because that paper is coming from what? It's coming from our brothers and sisters, the trees.
Exactly.
All that shit got to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
You said they're taking off Negro
Yeah.
because Negro is a code word for origin.
Yeah. Well, they're taking it off. Number one, they're not putting it on the new birth certificates.
They haven't done it in California. Wow.
Yeah, and then they're going back and stripping them off of others. So that's some of the fuck games that they're trying to play. And yes, purple pill paper requires signature. So that's just some of the fuck games they're trying to play. None of it is going to work, because if you have to keep doing this with paperwork, you just proving the motherfucking point that it ain't yours to begin with. And Purple Pill says not only does indigenous tie one to the land, it also ties one to divinity / the galaxy. Absolutely. That's why I keep saying it is deeper than what we think. Indeed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also you have to look at the fact that now when you look up indigenous, all you're seeing is the Asiatics. They're removing any trace of melanated people being the original people. So as far as for looking for any type of verification outside of self,
Indeed.
it's fuckery.
And that's
Everybody
true.
got to do their own spiritual work. You got to to be about your business. Not about everybody else. It's not about what we tell you.
That is so true. That is
when
so
you
true.
go within and realize what your purpose is, that's what your moves and everything should be about. And
Absolutely.
your purpose ain't shit about this goddamn system at all.
Agreed.
In fact, you'll find that you return to destroy this motherfucking system. Ain't nobody else coming to do it. Ain't nobody else coming to do it. Jesus, Muhammad, I don't care who you name as a prophet. Noble Drew Ali, he ain't come to destroy the system. Elijah Muhammad didn't come to destroy the system. Farrakhan didn't come to destroy the system. Who else you want to name?
You forgot Allah, but okay.
I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. I'm letting everybody name who they praise and just throw their goddamn hat in that goddamn volcano with the rest of them.
That's right. Can't argue with you on that. Can't argue with you. Real quick, Purple Pill in the chat goes, signature implies, I didn't get a chance to answer, but signature equals sig, German, SIEG, which equals victory over plus nature. So hopefully, so signature equals victory over nature. So do you all enter and understand how powerful signature and words are? And I would even throw in there, signature is sigil. And if you know what the sigil is,
it's a spell.
It exactly.
And
So,
when you sign, you could put yourself under a spell.
Exactly.
Shoot.
Exactly.
You know, when you go to jail, you don't sign that ticket, they can't do nothing with you.
Yep. So it's deep, family. It's deep. It's deep. So get your shit together spiritually, innerly, and you ain't got to worry about listening to anybody else's protocol, because you create your own reality. So if you're going to create a spell, I would think it should be in your benefit. You're going to want to go into contract. You would think you would write the shit up yourself and put your energy and vibration in it if you want to use the vibration of words to accomplish things. Because make no mistakes about it, I am not personally telling you that using words is a trick. What I am telling you is, if you're not using them yourself for your benefit, that it is a trick. You're supposed to be creating your reality through your thoughts, through your words, spoken and written, not it being dictated to you. And that's why some people don't enter and understand that the people that play the paperwork game, well, I followed that paperwork exactly and got locked the fuck up. Whose paperwork was it? Did you create it? No. Okay, well, that's why you got locked the fuck up. It's simple, people. But it all starts with self. Sweep around your own doorstep. Get your house in order internally and in your immediate family physically. Family matters should be handled within your family. Because soon as you go for some outside help for your family stuff, you better believe it's not going to be in your favor. So I know we took up a lot of time on that, but I just could not. I didn't expect for that article to take that long, but it really spoke to me. I wanted to get it out. We have 2 minutes before we go into overtime. I think, Purple Pill, you're the only one left in the chat room. So peace and love, and thanks to you if you're not going to join us into overtime at 929-477-3858. As usual, I really appreciate the information that you drop in the chat. You drop a lot of great stuff. One other thing that I did want to bring up, and I'm going to try to remember to research this, Tchaikovsky 1812 Overture, and that's spelled Tchaikovsky of 1812. So he is suggesting we do a little research on that, because that war of 1812 that happened over in the Americas, of course, as we always know, is a lot deeper than we think. So if you're not able to join us into overtime, as again, thank you, Purple Peel, your knowledge that you dropped, appreciate it. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean. Yes.
Actually, there were wars all over the world during 1812, 1813. All the melanated kingdoms were being attacked simultaneously.
Makes sense.
But one thing about that article that it just still keep rubbing me wrong. One generation after slavery, they acquired thousands of acres.
Right. One generation, Sean. One after it. As my auntie says, oh my gosh, I know she's gonna laugh at me from the spiritual realm when I say that. It just frosts my pits when I hear that. It really, really does.
And then the continuous and grotesque use of African American and black.
Yes.
I mean, what I'm feeling is that they already own that fucking land. And they created that story narrative the way that they did to get people to thinking about being African Americans and possible reparations and getting your land back as an African American. So we already know that if you holler an African American, you ain't getting shit but shipped the fuck up.
You ain't getting
out
shit. Right. Or locked the fuck up.
Right.
Exactly. Indeed.
So, I mean, I feel the warmth of it, but I don't know, to me it still just screams Hollywood tale and distraction.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely some cold fuckery in there with the African-American and one generation after slavery. But what touched me about the article, again, is the fact that we know that this is going on.
Exactly.
And the plight of this family, and especially those two brothers who had such an attachment to the land. That's what touched me. But although they was trying to throw the fuck shit in there with the African Americans, they always tell on themselves. Because although they were throwing code in there, they were proving the point that these folks are indigenous to the land.
Mm-hmm.
They already proved the point. So you can best believe they behind the motherfucking scenes trying to come up with ways to shut us niggas up. And that's why those of us that know who we are keep putting the warnings out to everyone. You better be careful when you're talking about some reparations and some payments on what you're doing. You better be careful. And as far as I'm concerned, let's say that I am African, that I was African, which I'm not. What payment could the motherfuckers give me for stripping me off of land and culture from the shores of Africa? It would be a disservice to my ancestral lineage to take some motherfucking fiat. Just like it's a disservice when heirs sell indigenous land here in the Americas. It's a disservice and it's disrespectful and it's a fucking insult. So you best believe they behind the scenes scrambling, and I'm going to tell you, y'all can scramble all you want to, because you know what? You bring up the reparation card, Caucasian/Europeans, you better throw your motherfucking hat in the ring too for reparations. Research your shit. Because your family came over as indentured servants. So you're the one supposed to be getting some motherfucking reparations. So keep on U.S. Corp talking that bullshit. The Caucasian/Europeans gonna stand up and get their shit too. And so now that's really gonna force the conversation. Wait, hold up. So if they were the slaves, how are these African Americans were the slaves? So who was owning who, and who was ruling over who? So keep it up, fucking U.S. Court. I'm telling you, it's going to backfire. Because your ass is out of here. Point blank and period. It's a done deal. Take that shit back over to Europe with that bullshit. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Also, to piggyback off of Brother 832 on the UnDrip thing.
Yes.
As far as saying that people can declare any nationality that they want, that's because it's a corporate construct. It's all a part of being corporate citizens. Nationality is part of the corporate construct. Nationality is bullshit. If we're pure energy and spiritual beings or soul beings, it's not about nationality. And irregardless to what names we may have had in past lives, it's not about nationality, because anybody can claim any nationality.
Right.
So that blurs the lines right there as far as for who's who. It's putting in that soul work in your connection with Mama.
Yep.
That determines who you are. Because if we're going to accept a name as beings, whatever we were when we first came here and had that contract with Mother, that's who we are. I mean, considering as we see throughout history, everything has been named after somebody. So common sense would only say that Mama named us after her. So whatever name she originally had, that's who we are, physically.
Exactly.
So until we find that out, we all faking the funk, calling ourselves all different type of nationalities and whatever, because all we're going by is what we've been told as far as for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And us being given the names in English, that's bastardizing it right there.
Right.
So it's always going to take you back to doing that internal work.
The inner soul work, absolutely.
And reconnect.
Absolutely. And bottom line is, I am who the fuck I say I am. And I don't have to explain who I am on my shit. Get the fuck out my face. How about that? Now go document that. Indeed. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis. Uh-oh. I thought sis had something to say. Okay. All right.
No, I'm muted. I was trying to see.
Okay.
Oh, I was muted.
Okay, I thought you said something and then got cut off.
I probably did. Forgot now.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Okay, family. So we're going to get into the topic tonight, the Lands of the Giants, Part 12. I did, damn, sis just dropped off. I knew her phone was about to break up. Okay, I'm going to try to play this video and then try to get her back. All right, so this particular video, and this is a shout out to Sis Cheryl again. She sent us some more information on the ancient giants of the Americas. Now, I didn't order this book, family, and so we're going to combine this book into the material as well. But in the meantime, this YouTube video called The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, and this is based off of a book by an author, Richard J. Dewhurst. And he was on a radio program back in 2014 called Red Ice Radio. This is pulled off of the YouTube channel URU Piper 2. Okay, you back on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, okay. I don't know how you got on.
I pulled her in.
Oh, okay. I was going to say she's supposed to be locked out. Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
Let me go hang up.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right. So
they didn't let
it wouldn't let you in because we're in overtime. So I was gonna call you, but Brother Sean took care of it. So this is the YouTube channel URUPIPER2, the number 2, and then the word TWO, and this is the ancient giants who ruled America. So I'm going to play part 1. Let's see. And then we're going to come back and chop it up and talk about it. Okay, there we are. That's kind of, if this is a long video, it's 20 minutes. It's got a lot of stuff in it. So I'm going to play this, and then we're going to come back and chop it up. Here we go.
Everybody, welcome. Thanks for tuning in wherever you're from. It's good to have you here. I hope you're doing well today. This is Henrik, and you're listening to the one and only Red Eyes Radio. Today we are going to talk about the giants, the ancient giants who ruled America, the missing skeletons, and the great Smithsonian cover-up. We have with us the author, Richard Dewhurst. He's also an Emmy Award-winning writer of the HBO featured documentary, Dear America, Letters Home from Vietnam, a graduate of New York University with degrees in journalism, film, and television. He has written and edited for the History Channel, the Arts and Entertainment Channel, PBS, Fox Television and Fox Films, ABC News, TNT, Paramount Pictures, and the Miami Herald. Interesting discussion is coming up. Stay with us. Richard, hi and welcome. Thanks for coming on Red Eyes Radio. Great to talk to you, and great to have you here.
It's a real pleasure to be on your show.
Excellent. Now, great job on the book, first of all, here. I mean, fascinating and highly insightful study into this particular kind of research. I think it compiles the largest archives of old reports of giants that I've seen so far. So great job, first of all, Richard, on the book.
Well, thank you very much. It was really an incredible experience when I started to get into the research. I subscribed to several online newspaper archive services that covered several hundred years of reports, and as I began to compile these articles, I could not believe what I was reading. These were not hoaxes, or these were major reports from the Smithsonian universities around the country, leading scientists, very detailed, and they literally had reports from every state in the United States.
Exactly. It's just an amazing, amount of evidence that's compiled here. Before we just kind of get into the meat of this then, Richard, what led you to this yourself? What, sparked your interest in this?
Well, the short answer is that I'm tall. I'm 6'6", and I've had a lifelong interest in giant stories. And I'm also a documentary filmmaker and a journalist. So over the years, I collected a sort of Fortean file with references to giants being found around America. And most of them were very short nubs or reference things. And so to get to the bottom of it, I subscribed to a couple of newspaper archive services that covered 300 or 400 years of newspaper reports in the United States. And that's when I really started to crack the thing. And I found that I could use word search when I didn't have any specific dates or anything. So I started putting in headline searches for giant skeletons in Earth, I think was the first one I put in there. And I got 30 hits. And I was just astonished at what I was reading. When I started telling my friends what I was finding, no one would believe it. They would just say, "Who says? That's impossible. It was a hoax." So I thought, well, I better reproduce these in the book so you can read them for yourself and make up your own mind.
Indeed, and it's a fascinating read. It is. Some of them are just extraordinary. And this seems to have been, more or less widely known at the time of these reports. As evidenced by that quote that you bring out from Abraham Lincoln right in the beginning of the book.
Well, exactly. Abraham Lincoln was giving a speech in Niagara Falls in 1848, in which he said, "The eyes of that extinct species of giant, whose bones fill the mounds of America, have gazed on Niagara as ours do now." And that quote is amazing for a number of reasons. evidence, first of all, that Abraham Lincoln said it. Number two, that it shows how widespread the knowledge of the giants in the 19th century were. We were an agrarian society. People were plowing fields all over America and turning up giant bones everywhere. The other interesting point is that an ancient town of giants was found on the Canadian-U.S. border near Niagara Falls with several hundred giants, houses with chimneys. They even found a blacksmith shop with 2 tons of charcoal and evidence of gold and silver work. And then close to there in Cayuga, New York, they found what was called the Cemetery of Giants. That was 200 skeletons, 7 to 9 feet tall. A little farther down the state on the Pennsylvania line, they found 150 skeletons, 7 feet tall. And this continues all the way down the coast of America and all the way across the middle of America and out to Catalina Island in California, which is one of the most astonishing stories you'll ever hear, what they found out there.
I definitely want to get into that later. I mean, that's extraordinary. And why don't we cover a little bit of the history first and maybe kind of just see and kind of paint the picture, I guess, a little bit for our audience. And how would you describe the real history of America, North America, as opposed to the Smithsonian official view that we've been fed for such a long time?
Well, let's get to the nub of it. The Smithsonian, when they started out, they published their first book in 1848 on the ancient monuments of the Mississippi Valley. It was an incredibly open-minded study with beautiful drawings of all of the mound builder finds that they had made in the middle of the country. Now, we're not talking about American Indians here. We're talking about what they refer to as the mound builder culture. And that predates the Indians, and it reached its height probably around 1200 AD. But we're now getting dates all the way back to 10,000 BC. And this mound builder culture is pervasive. The Smithsonian report itself said there was several 100,000 mounds in the United States. Now, in 1879, Major John Wesley Powell, who was a famous Western explorer, was made the first head of the Bureau of Ethnology. In 1879, he issued what was called the Powell Doctrine. And the Powell Doctrine forbade any evidence of pre-Columbus contact in the Americas. He said we're dealing with aboriginal savages who are illiterate. There's no signs of higher intelligence. Basically, it was carte blanche for manifest destiny, and also one of the cornerstones of the Smithsonian was the theory of evolution. And the theory of evolution, in a nutshell, says that we keep getting bigger and smarter over time. And you can't very well have 7 to 12-foot giants everywhere in America and argue that we're getting bigger and smarter. So,
nope.
That pretty much, and they've never rescinded the Powell Doctrine. So in case after case after case, these skeletons are being sent to the Smithsonian and just disappearing. In the book 1491, he estimates that Ailes Hedricka, who was the head of the Smithsonian from the turn of the century, and the man that came up with the absurd Bering Land Strait, they all came, down from Asia.
Yeah.
They estimated in that book that he had secreted over 30,000 skeletons during his tenure and refused to examine them.
What happened with them then? Do we know?
Well, I think it's kind of like that Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. They put them in boxes and they go off somewhere into the memory hole.
Yeah.
There's, a couple of cases where somebody's actually, the Fowler Museum in UCLA purports to have 200 of the skeletons found out in Catalina, but that's a whole other story we can get into. The Smithsonian, on the other hand, is completely not forthcoming at all.
Now, who would you say, if we could try to tackle that question a little bit, of who actually discovered America, or has it always been inhabited, do you think?
Well, this is very curious. Some of the finds, including the Spirit Cave mummies, which were found out in Nevada, they were discovered in the 1940s by the University of Nevada under several feet of bat guano. And they were incredibly well preserved, red hair, still intact, and covered in an incredibly finely woven fabric made out of tule reed. successfully filed away. And several years ago, a University of California researcher heard about them. He got one of them, carbon dated it to 7,500 BC.
Huh.
We're talking about advanced weaving and mummification in the Americas at 7,500 BC. So at one point, I say, well, maybe we discovered them and they didn't discover us.
Exactly, yeah.
But the related finds, especially in the Newark earthworks and up in Iowa along the Mississippi River, there's evidence of hieroglyphs, Egyptian writing, Roman coins. There's Hebrew holy stones that they found. The list just goes on and on. Viking, Celtic, Scythian, Asian, Hindu. I think everyone knew we were here, except kids that go to school in America these days.
How do you think we should approach these reports and the potentialities of people, wanting to have that here? You bring out that in the book that there was a struggle at the time, even with the Mormon religion, in the fact that they, talked about the lost tribe of Israel made their way over here, etc. You have this maybe also a willful mythologization of sorts that people wanted maybe that this to be something more. Should we take all those reports at face value and believe them, do you think?
Well, the question of the Mormon religion is very interesting. John Wesley Powell's father was a preacher in Palmyra, New York, which is up in the same area of New York State that I just told you where they found all these giants and evidence of gold and silver work. His entire congregation was taken from him by the Mormons. So John Wesley Powell had a particular sore spot regarding the Mormons. And in his first paper, which was issued in 1879 on the restriction of certain anthropological data, he goes out of his way to say, and we will not consider the evidence of any lost tribes in America.
Yeah.
And in Newark, Ohio, where a number of giants have been found, Ohio University has in their collection what they call the Holy Stone, which is a condensed version of the Ten Commandments, and some ritual cleansing bowls, which have been dated to the Second Temple. So it does raise some interesting religious questions as well. I
mean, when we think about this, then, if we consider diffusion as a cultural diffusion as opposed to walking over the Bering's land bridge there, we have a potential situation where different peoples for thousands of years have traveled over to America. I mean, there's this with the copper mines, which seems to have pretty established that there might have been trade routes going back to,
Absolutely.
2,000 years, right?
Well, the copper mines in Keweenaw Peninsula in northern Michigan are some of the most interesting, fascinating things I ran across in the book. Right north of the tip of the peninsula is something called Isle Royale, which is an island that's virtually made out of copper. And it's the highest quality, purest copper in the world because of the volcanic upthrust. The copper was all exposed to the air and the sulfur impurities burned off. Now, they've got evidence of mining there that go back 10,000 years. And there was two professors from Michigan that published a book that estimated 1.5 billion tons of copper were taken out of there.
Huh.
Now, the kings and queens, the giants in the mounds that I go through in the book are almost always covered in copper jewelry, copper crowns, copper armor, micas, often in association with that. But that in no way accounts for the extraordinary amount of copper that was taken out of there. And there's indications, there's some rock art I saw that looked like a boat from Crete had been engraved. And there's stories of monolithic docks up there, quays, dams, all kinds of things. So there's, and also I even ran across, they won't test the European copper for the Michigan signature, but I did see a passing reference to Oxford University tested one piece and found out it was from Michigan. So.
Really? How would they go about doing that? It's just so distinctly different, right? So you could see it?
Its purity is over 99%.
Right.
So it's so unique that it just once you test one, you can recognize its signature almost anywhere. And also, their copper working techniques were superior to anything we have. They used annealing, which was hot and cold water and cold hammering, and some other processes, which I think involved carbon from the fires that they would light around the copper veins. But report after report says these axes are as strong as steel. We don't understand how they were made.
Huh. So, who do you think was responsible for the mines, for the mining?
Well, again, there's huge finds of giants up there. I mean, basically what we're talking about is not that America was populated exclusively with giants, but that the ruling class was composed of giants. And mound after mound after mound, the central burial is of a giant. Sometimes he's surrounded in a sun circle burial with 10 warriors with their feet pointing at him. I have a great series of reports out of Tennessee and Kentucky that was done by Dr. John Haywood in 1823, where he went over 100 years of the stuff they had been finding there, and they found 9-foot blonde-haired giants in secret caves with roll-away stones, sacred springs, standing burials with monoliths around them. Just extraordinary stuff. And very specific, in terms of, here's where it was located. It was on this road. It was found by this guy. It was witnessed by these scientists. It was taken to the town over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems to be, I've wondered about this as well, if the stature of the people has to do something with the land and with the geology or something like that as well, because it seems like you talk about the Lenape, the Delaware Indians, for example, and they were also very tall, right?
Yes, and their legends go very far back and tie into the high culture that existed out in the deserts in the western part of the United States that basically came to an end around 5000 BC as a result of the Lassen volcano explosion. And as I said, we had very advanced mummification weaving found out there, dated, carbon-14 dated, 7,500 BC. The Lenape legends say that they were forced to migrate east, and when they crossed the Mississippi Valley, they ran into the ruling race of giants there, which were the Allegheny or Alaguay Indians, and that there was a series of epic battles that were joined in by another group that were called the Menengwe, who apparently also were giants. And the Alaguay were defeated and driven south, and the Lenape made it all the way across the country and are found all over the New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania area up until the time of the settlers.
And it seems that we have maybe potentially few survivors at the time, and you still have sporadic population of giants, but they've slowly just kind of disappeared and died out. Or how do we explain that? Or was it hunting?
Well, the legends that I found by the Indians, and the Indians over and over again also, I got to add, they always say, we didn't build these mounds, we didn't clear these fields, we didn't do any of this.
Yeah.
Giants did, and the height of their culture existed for thousands of years and seemed to have gone into a collapse between 1200 and 1500 AD. I have some remnant stories out west of what were called the Sitaka, or the red-haired giants, and the Paiute Indians tell a story that they drove the last of them into Lovelock Cave and set a huge fire and burned them out. It's curious that in my research I found out that they did excavations in Lovelock Cave, and under bat guano, once again, they found evidence of a fire, and under that they found 6 giant skeletons with red hair.
Huh.
We must take a lot of these Indian myths and legends a lot more seriously.
Indeed. I definitely agree with that. I think you do have a cross, you could correlate these stories with things that was going on in Europe as well. We have the myth of Beowulf and the Jotuns up in the north. It's worldwide, right?
I cannot agree more.
Yeah.
I think what we're looking at is I'd hate to call it the Atlantean culture, but I think that there was a worldwide culture that was ruled by giants. All the stories of the Titans, Goliath, so on and so forth. There's a very interesting story, quote I have in the Bible from Numbers, where they talk about going into a strange land ruled by the sons of Anak, who come from the giants. And it says, standing before them, we looked like grasshoppers. And if you look at the sons of Anak as a name, you notice that it's very similar to the Anunnaki,
right,
from Sumerian legend. It's also very similar to the Anasazi, who are the cliff dwellers out west, and the name that they use for the ancient ones that were the copper miners in Michigan.
Fascinating. Now, let's see if we can talk about if you.
Okay, so that was the first part. I had to split the video up. Again, this is from the YouTube channel, Your Ye Piper 2, The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America. This is also a book by Richard J. D. Hurst. And we're going to bring his material into this series next week. So before I go to that second part, because he's about to really get good, Sis and Brother Sean, do you all have anything you want to put on it?
I do. Remember I was telling you about Maine and David was over here fighting. He said 1500 AD. And they slipped that stuff in. So it was in the 1500s this happened. It's not as old as
That's a good point. That fits into the theory of the mud flood community that said that a lot of the stuff that they're claiming happened a long time ago didn't.
It was just recent. David went up to visit his friend, I think his name was Haram, and remember the cedars of Lebanon. And Lebanon, they say, is over there, and Lebanon don't have any cedars. It was over here. So David went up there to have his friend build him boats for transporting the lumber.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was listening to Hamir,
mm-hmm.
Let's get his name wrong. He talks about this. I sat there fascinated about the fact that they were produced, and they have artifacts of the copper. That's why they call us the copper-colored
people.
Yes, because copper is our main source of energy away from diseases. And so they make sure they take it out of our diets, you see. So we need to get that copper. And so they call us copper-colored people because we used to manufacture copper and we used to wear it.
Right.
So
and
that's what he
makes sense why our skin tones reflect that, right?
Yes.
Would that make sense?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They're just trying to say they discovered it, but it's been out there. Because David, remember I told you he went over to Europe to help the people over there fight whoever they were fighting. And he's saying it's the Anakin. The Anakin, the giant.
Which is a classification of a giant. And so this gentleman kind of confirmed what I was saying, that I felt that Anakin was a twist off of the word Anunnaki, but I'm sorry, sis, go ahead.
I don't think it's off of the Anunnaki, because Og, that book you were reading about Bashan, see, there was a battle going on, and he also mentioned that the giants were Indians. He also mentioned that.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think I saw him when I think I saw that video when he talked about the giants being Indian. But again, there was different classifications of giants and species.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting.
Because, we have to understand that the Indians were giants. They're not little people like we are now. I don't know what happened to us. So that's what he's saying, that there was different tribes of Indians that was warring against each other. And what do we do all the time? We war. Maybe we got punished. I don't know.
Well, it is interesting because remember, you wasn't here last week when we read an article about the Lenape tribe out of Delaware, and he kind of talked about that in this first clip that was played, was warring against another tribe of Indians, and he just called their names.
He did.
Yeah, he did. That's my fault. But they were considered giants. They were real tall people. And then the Lenape defeated them. And the Lenape tribe out of Delaware today, we know melanated people that are recognized and claim that heritage. So that just once again proves who the indigenous people were. But anyhow, the Lenape defeated that particular tribe of Indians, and then they kept mixing with other tribes that eventually became the Iroquois. The man didn't say this up in the video.
He just mentioned their names. He mentioned them by another name. He just said it.
and I have it because we read it last week.
Iroquois, he said. He called them a different name, Iroquois. I just heard him say it. Keep talking,
Yeah. So very, very interesting. So I'm going to play the second half. It is. The second half we are going to end out with that. So before I go into that, we'll do last words because I really want to get this second half in for the family. Brother Sean, you have any last words for the family?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Sis, you have any last words for the family?
Well, I did come across the book. I don't have the title here. It talks about the Black Hebrews and the Black Indians as Hebrews. So I got it off of Amazon. So I'm going to have to read that book. But they tell you who the Indians really are. And also they were also coming in from Mayan territory up to the northern territory. That's where we were traveling from. So they said the Mayan culture disappeared. We're still here. And I appreciate this study today. It was really good because we have so many problems, but we're going to get out of it, And we're not going to get it because we have something coming, Brother Sean. That's for darn sure. It's the age is going to change it. The age requires.
Absolutely. So, family, thank you all. We're not leaving. We're just saying last words. So I'm going to shut up and play part 2. So love you much, and we're going to be back next week. But here's part 2, the ancient giants who ruled America.
I believe that there were different people, cultures, races, whatever you want to call it, in different regions then, because there is certain areas where there definitely is more activity, more finds, if you will. I mean, Ohio, definitely that seems to be the prime one, right, almost?
Amazing finds all throughout Ohio, involving universities, Smithsonian. Well, if you take a look at it, the problem with America is that we think of it in terms of states, and so we have blinders on,
Right.
I mean, something can be in Indiana, and it's only 20 miles away from Ohio, but we think it's somehow different. And when you really look at a map of America, you'll see that all the way from West Virginia and Pennsylvania, there's basically a swath of valleys and forests and rivers that continue all the way to the Mississippi River. And these were covered in huge earthworks, hundreds of thousands of them. One Smithsonian report says that they thought in the East Coast alone there was over 100,000 mounds. And some of them, like Cahokia, are larger in mass than the Great Pyramid. But majority, 80-90% of all these sites have been destroyed over the years. and the government has not protected hardly any of them until very recently. Some of them, Cahokia didn't get a heritage status until the 1960s, and I have articles from 1905 when they were trying to save these things.
Oh boy. Now, I know that there's some interesting things you bring up later in the book. I want to get there in terms of some of the, more or less lost cities and things that we've, largely forgot about. But if we look at what's left already, then we have, the Serpent's Mounds in Ohio. We have around the Mississippi Valley, tons of different earthworks and everything else. What do you think was the purpose of these sites?
Well, they seem to have been divided into 4 or 5 different categories. The extremely large ceremonial sites, like the ones found in Charleston, Wheeling, West Virginia, all the way through Cahokia, are certainly, primarily ceremonial. But they've also discovered giant burials in there. You find literally temples that are inside of these mounds, log cabins inside the mounds, huge standing stones. They're very elaborate and full of grave goods as well. And then there's the smaller mounds with a lesser rank of burial, but then there's a huge number of them called effigy mounds, which are pictorial mounds. And the number of animals, squirrels, lizards, ducks, snakes, birds, there's reports of ones formed in the shape of humans, mastodons, elephants. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
There's an area of Wisconsin that was literally carpeted with these effigy mounds. I liken it to the Nazca Plains down in South America in terms of pictorial complexity. I mean, they were so in touch with nature and so in tune with their environment. I think that they envisioned it as a huge natural tapestry that they were just augmenting and enhancing. And there's not a lot of evidence of defensive structures. It does not seem to have been, an extremely warlike society.
Right. So let's try to tackle this one in terms of what actually made them into giants. I mean, we have you bring that up in the book as well. There are certain, gigantism. There are certain things that are comes about because of tumors in the right, or should we say wrong place in the brain and everything else. But it seems to me that they were. It's the properties of the earth that was different. We've seen all kinds of animals in the past, basically being gigantic. There's something that changed, and possibly even through the catastrophism kind of lens, if you will, that we had something that changed the properties so dramatically on the earth that the properties for being this large just went away. What do you think?
I tend to agree with that. I've heard some very fanciful theories that even the gravity may have been different before the last cataclysm. There's no question that when you look overall at the record of animals, they tend to get smaller over time. They don't get bigger. Dinosaurs ended up like birds, right? Birds didn't grow into dinosaurs.
Right.
And you see the same thing, with horses and pigs and all of these charts. Another thing, though, is if you notice, having read through a lot of those accounts over and over and over again, they talk about how large the jaw was of the giant skeletons they're finding. They keep saying that they could slip it over their heads, and that the bones themselves, in many cases, seem to be thicker. The skulls were thicker. And although I don't theorize it on in the book, because I really don't have any proof one way or the other, I'm coming to the conclusion that these may be Cro-Magnon.
Yeah.
And that the elongated skulls, giant skulls, that they've also found in West Virginia and other places in the United States, and obviously lots of them in South America, I think may be what are referred to as the original gods. In the Greek myths, you had the gods, then you had the Titans, and then you had us, basically. And that's sort of what I think the lineage is of what these finds in America are telling us.
And what do you make then about the conflicts between these different species, that it's basically us who hunted some of the giants to extinction because of, well, there could be various reasons for that, but it seems to have been conflict at some point in history between the races, at least.